Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
Hello, MacPack. It's great to be back with you for another episode of our program. This is On the Move, the show that attempts to inspire you to stand up for your rights. We talk about all sorts of things here, government, philosophy. I'm a libertarian with conservative leanings. I give you my view of what's going on in the world, in the news, in the news cycle, through politics, government, talk about guns, all that kind of stuff. And I give all this information, or I talk about this from my perspective, which again is a libertarian conservative. So I try to apply everything through that lens. Okay, so first things first, if I haven't said so already, I'm Mac Worley III. I'm your host. We broadcast every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at our hub, OnTheMoveShow.com. That's our website. You can get everything there. We got a shop there. Check it out. We got lots of original designs, hoodies, t-shirts, phone cases, coffee mugs, all that kind of stuff. Got products for you if you're interested in that kind of thing. You'll help get our show bigger and better. We also simulcast on Spreaker.com/OnTheMoveShow. Spreaker.com/OnTheMoveShow. You can follow us over there. I will be much obliged. You can also follow us and interact with us on Twitter at OnTheMoveShow, live on the air. If your tweet is deemed worthy, I will read it. And let's see, you can get us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. As always, our MacPack phone lines are also open, so feel free to give us a call. Let us know what's on your mind. Today's episode is titled The Left Riots Against Trump. This is episode 150 of our program, and let's go ahead and just get right into the featured topics here. The first topic I want to talk about is these anti-Trump protesters. I'm using air quotes here because I believe these are called rioters, or criminals would be another great word for it. Anti-Trump rioters smash windows, vandalize cars on streets of Washington. So the left is going freaking crazy right now because Donald Trump, if you weren't aware, if you somehow missed that, you've been living under a rock somehow, Donald Trump's our new president of the United States, folks. So just to give you a heads up, that's a legitimate election. That is a matter of fact. It is a conspiracy theory at best that he is an illegitimate president. So I will just throw that out there. That's my position on this. I'm not even a supporter, just to give you a heads up. I'm not even a supporter of Donald Trump himself, but I acknowledge that he won this election fairly. I don't think that Russia hacked the election as the media has tried to portray it, making people think that somehow Russia hacked into voting machines. That did not happen. Russia hacked into the DNC because they did not provide really any security at all. They weren't even funding their security. They used their money, and they complained that we had to use their money in other areas because we didn't have enough money, blah, 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 blah. Excuses why they didn't protect their infrastructure. They get hacked. The stuff that gets released is incriminating because they're doing some shady things. So, and who's to say really how much influence that did? At most, Russia influenced the election. I don't think they influenced it really that strongly towards Donald Trump. I don't think that was the deciding factor. I think primarily people were sick of having things shoved down their throat from the Obama administration and being promised another 4 or 8 more years from the Hillary Clinton administration. I think that's what people were sick of, and I honestly believe that most people voted against Hillary rather than voting for Donald Trump, or at least a large section of that voting bloc. But I digress. The point is that Donald Trump is now the president of the United States. He won a fair and free election. Time to move on. This kind of stuff doesn't happen. The smashing windows and vandalizing cars in the streets, this does not happen when Democrats get elected. Republicans don't go around freaking out, acting like the election was rigged when we lose. And we lose all the time. So anyway, another featured topic. I want to talk about how CNN declines to air White House press conference live. Another one, Facebook introduces fake news filter in Germany in time for federal elections. This was an interesting story for me this week, and it's it's not really politics, but I think it's newsworthy. You all may be familiar with Wendy's, the franchise, the fast food joint. Wendy's just embarrassed the hell out of a Twitter troll, and it's it's totally changing its image. If you can watch what they're doing, they're saying that they're selling fresh, never frozen beef for their burgers, and they're really coming after McDonald's and Burger King and things like that. And anyway, this story is interesting. I'll read it later. It'll be probably in the second or third hour. So I didn't get a chance to talk about this last week. Things to look for during a Donald Trump presidency. There's some things that I want to talk about, specifically regarding the CIA, the use of the CIA, the press, free trade, entitlements, debt, and war. These are the categories that I will consider to be a threatening area during a Donald Trump presidency for anyone who values limited government and free expression and free trade, that kind of thing. So these are the areas where I'm going to talk about in a little bit more. We got a whole lot more left on the agenda if we have time. In the first hour here, in actually a couple of minutes, we're going to be joined by my good friend Leo Stratton. He's going to talk about what he saw, what his experiences was at Donald Trump's inauguration. He was there. He's going to give us the heads up of what he saw on the ground. And I would actually like to hear about the size of this crowd. Full disclosure, Leo is a Donald Trump supporter. So you're going to get that perspective. I am not a Donald Trump supporter, but I am a supporter of small government practices, that ideology, all right? So you'll get, we'll talk about the issues here. I specifically want to get his hands-on knowledge about what he saw while he was down there. If he saw lefties out there, I know he tends to hunt them down. Him and Dan Sandini are have come up together, tracking down and filming the lefties and showing what they do, putting it on display. That way America can see what these guys are doing. Honestly, I think it is amazing the amount of violence that comes from the left, almost exclusively coming out of the left, especially during political protests. Anyway, so we're going to cover all that and much more, and we'll be right back after this break, folks. You don't want to miss what's coming up next.
Have you visited the On the Move with Mac Worley store? We've got amazing original design t-shirts, hoodies, cell phone cases, and coffee mugs for sale at OnTheMoveShow.com. Just click the shop link on our homepage. You won't want to miss out on the iHeart Open Carry and Bare Arms t-shirts for only $20 plus shipping. Again, just go to OnTheMoveShow.com and click the shop link on our homepage. Your purchases will help make the On the Move show bigger and better. We appreciate your support. Are you an activist who needs affordable flyers or brochures for passing out literature? Or a political candidate who's looking for business cards, logo designs, yard signs, or vehicle decals? Email me, Latasha Worley, for all your graphic design needs at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com. And don't forget to mention On the Move to get a 10% discount on all graphic design services.
Oath Keepers is a nonpartisan association of current active duty military, reserve, guard, veterans, peace officers, and firefighters who will fulfill the oath we swore, with the support of like-minded citizens who take an oath to stand with us, to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So help us God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
All right, Matt Pack, we're back. I'm looking at an article here on CNN.com, and it's something I want to read here. This is a women's march, a cathartic moment, or enduring movement. This is the name of this article. It's on CNN.com, written by Mauve Reston. Article was written on January 22nd, so that's today. This is fresh. All right, so it says, marches for women's rights in the United States and around the world amounted to a remarkable protest against Donald Trump on his first full day in office. The question going forward is whether the marches are simply a cathartic moment for people upset over Trump's election victory or a more enduring opposition movement. Now, keep in mind, if this was the left that won the election and the right was swelling up like this, we wouldn't be getting these kind of friendly headlines. They would be calling us obstructionists and backward and trying to set us back, trying to stall progress or, take us back to the 50s or something like that. These are the kind of accusations that would be levied. It wouldn't be something that they wouldn't be calling it a enduring opposition movement. And again, who's to say how long these kind of protests will last? I could go one way or another as far as I'm concerned, because I remember watching Occupy Wall Street, and these people literally were camping out. They didn't have jobs to go to. They didn't have anything to do, so they were defecating on sidewalks and urinating on them and camping out in a public square and stuff, and they just stayed there. Okay, let them stay. They're not hurting anybody as long as they're not breaking the law, as long as they're not hurting other people or trying to take their stuff. I'm all for it. They can do whatever they want as far as those kind of protests. So anyway, the article continues. While the mood at the main march in Washington was mostly jovial, the day underscored some of the challenges facing the left in the aftermath of Trump's victory. It was not immediately clear what political impact the marches would have on the Trump administration or Republicans in Congress. Trump didn't address the march during remarks he delivered Saturday afternoon at CIA headquarters in Virginia. So, at this point, we're joined by my good friend, Leo Stratton. Hey, Leo, are you there?
I am here. How you doing, Mac?
I'm doing really well. First of all, I just want to thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited to talk to you. It's actually been a while since we've talked on or off the air, so I'm excited to pick your brain on what you think's going on. First thing, you were at the inauguration, right?
Correct, yes. My wife, myself, and Mark Callahan, who ran for Senate as a Republican against Ron Wyden, and his fiancée.
Yes, sir. So what was your impression of the event overall?
Overall, well, I was a little bit, shall I say, overwhelmed because I had actually never been over to Washington, D.C., so I enjoyed the event, but I was also blown away by all of the things in our capital, all the wonderful monuments and just it feels like the birth of the nation there when you're there.
Yeah. I mean, it's our capital. It's very impressive. I remember my 8th grade field trip going there. One of the things I heard reported this week was that during the inauguration, the feel, according to The Economist, they said that it felt like the city was being taken over by out-of-towners. They felt that a lot of people who were there were kind of just there specifically, people from the heartland of the country or people from all walks of life there to see and support Donald Trump, because it mattered so much for them to be at this inauguration. They felt like this was their inauguration. So did you get that impression? Did you feel like there was a lot of out-of-towners in Washington walking around with you with like maps and stuff trying to find your way around?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, isn't that the reward of the people of this country electing President Trump? Is to be able to come and support him. We spoke with several different individuals on. It was we were staying in Virginia, so it was a good hour plus on the subway system there to get down to central D.C. where all this was taking place. And we had many conversations with people from Florida, from California, Texas, New Jersey, you name it. Mm-hmm. And yes, there was lots of red hats there with Make America Great Again. And what I did really notice was everybody was very friendly, very upbeat, and very proud.
Yep.
And that's probably what D.C. was taken aback by.
Yeah. And you know, he did represent a outsider candidate. I honestly think that Donald Trump did win as a third party. He was bashing both parties while he was running the campaign. So his outsider status, you know, you can imagine how Washington D.C. would feel like it's been taken over. So one of the things I want to address was something I've been seeing I've been going back and forth between Fox News and CNN since the inauguration, and CNN's now talking about these pictures of the inauguration. How Donald Trump was basically claiming that this was the biggest, best, inauguration ever. More people attended than ever before. They were comparing photos, and from what I saw on the television, it looked like there were just people as far as the eye can see. What was your impression on the ground? How many people were there?
Well, I can't. I'm not one of those people that can specifically say exactly how many people, but every space was taken, and I was filming the entire process, and we had reserved area, but not seats, and so we got there around 7 a.m., between 7 and 8, to get a good spot, and so we were there for several hours in the morning, and I, at various points of that, before the actual swearing in, I took a lot of video, and in front of me and behind me, because I was about less than 100 yards from where Trump was, in the front, basically the front lawn of the Capitol building.
Wow.
And then I would look back to where the Washington Capitol is, which is, I don't know, maybe a mile in the distance, and it was a sea of people in every spot as far as I could see. And it filled up a lot more when it was becoming around, I'd say 9:30 or so.
I see. So, the pictures I keep seeing, I don't know what the source is on this photo that I saw on CNN. It showed a lot of grass out there on the on that big lawn.
Yeah, because they took it at about 6:30 in the morning,
okay,
right after the gates opened.
So they're being dishonest with that picture then.
Oh yeah, if you go to my Facebook site, I have a photograph that has a picture taken, near the inauguration time, and it's completely full all the way back.
See, this is one of the issues I've been noticing in this campaign, and I'm really kind of taken aback by the lack of self-awareness from these media companies. They've been telling us for the last, I'm talking about CNN, MSNBC, mainstream media. They've been telling us that we need to watch out for fake news, and they act like it's exclusively on the right when they're the ones that are actually producing some of this fake news. They're showing a photo that was taken before the crowd even got there, trying to show that it was much. And they were comparing it to President Obama's 2008 inauguration, and there was no grass empty in the area there for people. It was action packed with Obama, but in comparison to that photo, so I would like to see a legitimate same picture of the crowd. Do you have that on Facebook or online somewhere?
Well, I have a picture on my Facebook, and then I am issuing, as I did on your channel there, little by little, I'll probably have at least a couple more videos leading up from when I arrived on Thursday to when the actual inauguration was completed on Friday. And amongst the upcoming videos I will be posting, I intentionally took video of the crowds in front of me and behind me, and I will be putting that up. And I intentionally say intentionally because even before these stories came up, I knew that they would question the crowd sizes and try to underestimate them, because they do that with protests. They do that with Second Amendment events. They always do that.
So can we see that in the videos that you linked earlier today in our On the Move group?
No, because those the two that I posted were my arrival and some highlights there, as well as speaking with some protesters, and basically it's leading up to the welcome concert, which actually occurred on Thursday evening. So probably tomorrow or the next day, I'll have video that includes the actual inauguration itself, and within that I will have video that, like I said, I intentionally pointed behind me, all around me, to 360 all around me to kind of show the crowd.
I see. Yeah, I'm trying to find one right now. I haven't had much luck. So, what are your thoughts on this, the left now? Right now, because Donald Trump wins, they're calling him basically, essentially a Nazi, a hate monger. Says he hates basically everyone non-white and male, and that he's essentially going to kill us all. They're already talking about impeachment charges now. So, what are your thoughts? In full disclosure, you are a Donald Trump supporter. You support him during the campaign, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I have no intention of masking that whatsoever,
so
and I'm very proud of it.
Do you think that Donald Trump is going to pose as big of a threat as these lefties seem to think he is? What do you think Trump will do?
I think he poses a threat to their establishment, and he poses a threat to their ability to put their agenda through. He poses a threat to their having full power and having to actually answer to us, the citizens, as the ones that employ them, not the other way around, like they've thought for so long.
So why do you think that Donald Trump won?
Why do I think Donald Trump won? Because he was basically saying, tackling things like a administrator to a corporation or a business would do, not looking at personal, not looking at it as doing this for friends and giving into that, but just saying, okay, this is what needs to be done. I'm going to put the best people there to do it. It's going to get done, or that person is no longer going to be there. And it's not going to have anything to do with deals or anything else. It's just going to be, plus he literally, he doesn't look down his nose at, mom and pop, Joe Blow, whatever you want to say, middle America. That's, he understands that that's the core of America, and he also understands what it takes to create jobs and to go out there and work.
So, what do you think that Donald Trump will do to create jobs?
What do I think he will? I think he will significantly get rid of a lot of the actions done previously that put limitations on things such as looking into extracting our own natural resources, and the great thing would be to not have us have to be dependent upon foreign oil, and and he's not going to go out there and tell people in West Virginia that he intends to bankrupt, to get rid of their industry. It's going to be the opposite. So all the things that the left, because you'll see in the second video that I posted on your channel there, on your there's a guy that's telling me all about how Trump is going to do all this global warming stuff, and I'm like, well, there's no proof either way, but I mean, that's one of their genuine fears. But there's a lot of people in North Dakota, West Virginia, places like that are like, well, thank God, I don't have to worry so much about my livelihood.
Yeah.
And losing my job to a solar panel or something.
So here's one of the things about Donald Trump that I've started to come to the conclusion. I didn't think that he cared about climate change from the beginning. During the campaign, he didn't seem to care about it. He, in fact, called it a hoax. Now, recently, with Trump in charge, here's an article on the New York Times. I have two of them real quick. I'm going to read just portions of them. With Trump in charge, climate change references purged from the website. Within moments of the inauguration, President Trump, the official White House website on Friday, deleted nearly all mentions of climate change. So on the website, that's one of their first acts, to start to delete information on the site referencing climate change. And this next article here is the Washington Post. Trump says nobody really knows if climate change is real. President-elect Donald Trump said Sunday that nobody knows whether climate change is real and that he is studying whether the United States should withdraw from global warming agreements struck in Paris a year ago. This article was from December 11th, and again, that was the Washington Post. So I really don't think that he's going to be pushing climate change agendas so much. But my question to you first, do you think that climate change is real? Is it a hoax? What's the deal with climate change?
You know, I think climate change is real only in the fact that it's ever changing. The climate has never ever it goes through changes throughout however many years there's been weather, and however many years Earth has been around since the creation. And I believe in God as my creator, and I think to say that there's climate change that we are affecting is kind of spitting in the face of God, because or nature, because I just think it's ever changing.
So you don't think that there's any way that we could change the climate?
I don't think that. Well, maybe if we could stop things like volcanoes exploding, because when Mount St. Helens, for example, blew, which was no fault of anybody's, it was just a natural thing, that had a greater effect on the climate than anything for like 10 years combined could in that event.
I agree.
So I think I think we can do things to make our air cleaner, and maybe not be irresponsible. I'm not saying go out there and dump stuff in the rivers and everything, but I think to put limitations on businesses and on companies and stuff to I come from a logging family, and most of my family in Eastern Oregon lost their livelihoods because of people saying, well, you can't cut the trees down, when they actually said, well, you cut them down and then you put new ones in to replace them, and it's a way to keep reforesting, and they lost that fight, and now they have forest fires that wipe everything out, and it's not any good. So anyway,
I think Donald Trump is probably going to move to eliminate some of the carbon taxes, which is something that I find particularly egregious. First of all,
I do too.
The carbon tax, it's based on the theory. This is a theory that humankind are out there changing the temperature of the Earth based on the amount of carbon we're producing. This is a theory, and even though they put this formula into a computer model, they continually are wrong about how much the Earth will warm with the amount of carbon dioxide that we're producing. And the problem is these models are wrong over and over and over again, because there is no formula that they can tell you how many units per million we add of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, how many degrees the Earth will warm, because they don't know. Again, you would think that there would be a correlation between how much of carbon you've added and how much the temperature would increase if these two things were related. I don't think that humans are actually changing the climate. I think we're in a cycle, and
yep.
this is what happens with our planet. We still don't fully understand it. Again, just think of the planet. All right, I want you to think of the planet as like a patient, and it's the way doctors have it now. They just mostly guess. They're guessing about your condition. They can run tests and things like that, but they're also guessing what tests to run based off your symptoms. And they've got all of these patients, millions and billions of patients to pick from to study the human body, and they still don't fully understand it. It's mostly guesswork. And when you think about with the planet, they've only got one subject to study. Here, they can physically be there to study it, is our planet. How much do we really know about our planet? There's a lot we don't. So I am less inclined to believe a wild speculative theory that humans are producing carbon dioxide, which is getting trapped in our atmosphere, which is raising the Earth's temperature, because the Earth's temperature changes all the time. The climate always has historically changed. We were in an ice age, now we're not. The planet has changed.
It's cyclical.
Yeah, so who's to know what's going on? I really do hope that he gets rid of those carbon taxes. That would...
Well, I think a lot of it is people... how much is Al Gore making off of selling something that is just basically an agreement? There's no there to it. It's almost like their own currency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then another thing too. The way I look at the climate agreements is essentially a international agreement where they essentially have found a way to have an income tax. They've figured out how to income tax the entire planet, and I believe this is just the funding mechanism that they're trying to create for global governance, which is something that I'm against. So just like the TPP setting up global governance over that has supremacy over our Constitution. I believe in our sovereignty. I don't want to join international agreements and restrict our own ability to determine our future. We have sovereignty.
Well, there's individual states that are doing just that. You look at one of the reasons California has so many bankrupt cities is they put in all of these and Portland's on their way to it too. You put in all of these carbon agreements, limiting things and everything else, and the companies that they say, well, we can't exist here. We're going to have to move somewhere else. And they just cut their own throats.
I see.
And it's ridiculous.
So do you think... Actually, I'm just curious. There's so many critics out there talking about Donald Trump, namely that he's a racist, he's a misogynist, he's anti-Muslim, he's a Nazi. What do you say, being a Donald Trump supporter? What do you think he is? And what is your justification?
It's funny because I was watching the news early on inauguration morning before we were set to head out, and they had on Jim Brown, whom the Cleveland Browns, great running back, arguably the best ever, and he was a massive Trump supporter, and he was like, Trump came to us and we talked about ways to improve the inner city. He honestly cares and wants that for that community. So, I don't see him as a racist. And as far as the misogyny things, all the people that are criticizing him, like Ashley Judd, for example, just recently, her garbage, or Madonna, I'm sure that if any individual, we could go back sometime, and if you had the camera at the right time, you would catch some type of similar thing. Trying to oppress a friend, trying to, in whatever, we all have weaknesses. But, he hasn't, look at all his manager of his campaign was female. If he hated women so much, or, thought nothing of them, why would he have somebody like that to run his campaign, which he was victorious on?
Because maybe he could pay her 7 cents on every 10. You're right. He could pay her 70% less.
It's just,
according to the wage gap.
It's the same old, and the Nazi thing. That is the laziest argument. It's the other side just has, and I think it's their connection with white people by saying that people that they don't like or disagree with them are Nazis, and they always say it about white people, and it's the easiest, most lazy comparison. It has not. When people say it, I'm like, that's a real insult to anybody that had family in World War II that fought and anybody that had God forbid family that might have been in Auschwitz or Jewish or anything else, because what he did was a horrible, horrible thing, and just to throw it around nonchalantly the way they do about people, when it really what it is. Well, he's a white guy, so yeah, I guess he's a Nazi because Hitler was white, and I honestly think that's part of it.
I don't have any issue with people laying claim that somebody is a Nazi as long as there's some foundation of truth. And this is where you and I will probably disagree. I don't think that Donald Trump is Hitler. Let me be clear. I don't think he is anywhere on that level. One of the reasons why people say, oh, this is like the Nazis or something along those lines is because you notice similarities and you say this is where it could end at. Trump recently was in the news using the word Nazi in reference to what he believed that the CIA was doing, which is essentially trying to leak information about him, that dossier that ended up showing that Russia didn't have anything on him, but they were trying to, and they don't even know the authenticity of this report. But Donald Trump thought that the CIA was leaking this on him purposefully, with ill intent, basically. And he said that's something that Nazi Germany would do. And now the left in that, they got all up in arms about that. And actually, I can't remember the organization, demanded that Donald Trump apologize for using the word Nazi to describe these kind of tactics. That, for example, I don't like the idea of us saying we can't call somebody a Nazi because, it's offensive or something like that, if there is some similarities. And now I will just say, one thing that Donald Trump does worry me on is I happen to believe that he's a progressive. I know you and I disagree on that. I think he's a nationalist progressive. So my issue with that is he's endorsing a lot of nationalism, all right, in the America First, that kind of stuff, talking about tariffs, and then at the same time talking about the expansion of government, like entitlements, free daycare, universal health care, that kind of stuff. So with that in mind,
where are you getting universal health care?
Donald Trump has already said that the government's going to pay for everyone's health care. That is called single payer health care. So, and I can play the clip for you. If you don't believe me, you can hear it from him. Give me 1 second. What do you think about all that? I'll look up the clip.
Well, I think what he is doing is trying to come up with a solution to the healthcare situation, which now we have to come up with some type of solution because of the mess that Obama made of it by implementing all of his things. And I think it's all in the wording and the paraphrasing that I don't single payer. That's just my opinion, but I think a lot of people, I think Obamacare was definitely on the ticket, if you will, during the election and helping get Trump get elected.
Okay, well here's Donald Trump. If you don't think this is single payer or universal health care, give me 1 second. I'll play the clip for you so you can hear him.
Everybody's got to be covered. This is an un-Republican thing for me to say, because a lot of times they say, no, the lower 25%, they can't afford private. But
Universal health care.
I am going to take care of everybody. I don't care if it costs me votes or not. Everybody's going to be taken care of, much better than they're taken care of now.
The uninsured person
right.
is going to be taken care of.
They're going to be taken care of.
How?
I would make a deal with existing hospitals to take care of people. And you know what? This is probably...
Make a deal. Who pays for it?
The government's going to pay for it, but we're going to save so much money on the other side.
So that was actually the same excuse that they told us on Obamacare. They're talking about single-payer health care. If the government pays for everyone's health care, and it doesn't matter if they're calling it Trump care, Obamacare, Medicaid, Medicare, it doesn't matter if the government is the source. What was that?
Oh, that clip.
This clip is from this election. This is September 27th, 2015. Excuse me. It was from 2015. So just a few years ago. And recently, he's actually, I just saw a story that he's been confirming this position over and over again. He said he's for, not for the mandate, but he's for the exemption for pre-existing conditions, and he wants to make sure that people who are 25 and under can still get on their parents' insurance. So this is, again...
Well, those two parts were basically, were actual, to the Obamacare thing, were things that were approved by Republicans in general, and conservatives. That was about the only two things that were agreeable to them.
Yeah, of course. Those are the only good features in Obamacare. You can't... This is the issue. In addition to the subsidy, if you're receiving the subsidy, if you're not, if you're on the other end of that of paying it out, it's a redistribution of wealth. There will be no way that they cannot redistribute wealth without being able to have the insurance companies be able to exempt people, or not be forced to exempt people who have previous conditions. Otherwise, you're getting a bunch of sick people, and those sick people are going to need more help, and they'll get subsidized, and that's going to have to happen in order for them this insurance to be affordable to them. They'll have to get subsidized from someone else, and who's going to pay for that? The healthy younger people who aren't buying into Obamacare already, which is why the system is failing. If you want to quote unquote fix this, as far as the way I think Trump sees this, it is to have the government fully take over the healthcare system, no longer privatize. That's the only way that you'll do it, and it'll be run ineffectively. It will be insolvent eventually, as all these entitlement programs are. The issue here is Donald Trump is
like Medicare.
Medicare. You name the program. You name the government program that's founded on redistribution of wealth, and I'll show you one that's on its way to insolvency. That's the way these things work. So I don't believe that Donald Trump is ideologically small government in this regard. Would you disagree with me?
Yeah, I would actually, because prior to the Obamacare thing, when he basically said, "I'm gonna listen to both sides," and then he basically didn't, and had his own thing in mind anyway. The Republicans were coming up with something that was a investment thing where they actually had a funding mechanism on their own, like a healthcare savings deal, and subsidy as far as tax free and things like that, but actual using money that was, instead of being withheld from taxes or whatever to pay for other things, having that money withheld as basically a bankroll, a health insurance type paying thing, and so that's also a good possibility.
So
that's not single payer.
Do you think? Let me be clear here. As a Donald Trump supporter yourself, are you ideologically against redistribution of wealth?
Absolutely.
Okay. So if Donald Trump, and I'm just curious here, if Donald Trump actually does implement some kind of Trump care or move us to either the system that we are now or single payer, or would you support that, or would you oppose that if it relied on redistribution of wealth, like Medicare, Medicaid, all this other stuff?
Well, I think that it's gonna be a time process, and I think it's something that's needed to be fixed for many years, and it's going to take many years to actually fix it, if it is fixable. As it is right now, before Obamacare or anything else, if you went into the emergency room or whatever, there's very little chance that some way they're not going to let you die on the table between dying and having them treat you. That's just human. That's because we're Americans and we care somewhat about human beings. We have some and I think that's going to continue, and I think it's going to at least be addressed rather than I think in some ways Obama wanted Obamacare to fail in some ways so that it could get single.
Well, the architect of Obamacare, the architect of Obamacare already said that it was designed to fail, and that it was intended to push towards single payer. So these are honestly, this is what I think is happening right now, is we're moving closer and closer towards single payer. So I don't think that the government should be redistributing wealth, paying for somebody else's health care with someone else's money. So I'm ideologically opposed to that for any reason whatsoever. I think the only thing that's necessary to fix this healthcare system we have right now is to get the government the hell out of it and to open up the state lines, allow insurance companies to do business across state lines. That is
but he's also said, you know, a lot of these things that he's going to reverse them, you know, and executive orders or whatever to reverse them. I think that's one of the big things, and that's part of also how of solving it in a business type, as a businessman, as a CEO of a corporation type way would do it.
I just don't. Don't hear him saying this. His answers are that the government still needs to impose its will on insurance companies and tell them that they cannot discriminate against somebody because of pre-existing condition, and they have to keep their children on the policies until age 26. This is that's not free market. That's anti-free market.
It's only two little parts of the.
Those are two extremely
very large.
Those are not two little parts as you claim it was. Those are two enormous parts that completely and drastically alter the free market. Those are the good parts, the parts that people benefit from, not the parts that where people are having wealth taken away from you. You can't have the good parts without the bad.
So how would you fix that?
I've already said I would get the government out of healthcare entirely. I would stop the government from preventing insurance companies from doing business across state lines. You increase competition, you have more competition in a market, you're going to see prices drop in that market. And as
how is that going to completely change the two things that you just mentioned?
What are you talking about?
I'm saying if you immediately allow that and immediately, you know, break down the abilities to compete and stuff like that, how is that going to allow? Because
you as a consumer will be able to shop around. You won't have there's places where there's only one insurance provider to choose from right now, and that's because of all the regulation in the market. You get rid of the regulation.
You think that the Trump wants to continue keeping it that way?
Well, this is what he stated by saying that he's going to keep the pre-existing condition exemptions, forcing insurance carriers to accept people who are already sick, already have a pre-existing condition. By that force,
what that has to do with not allowing them to trade and shop around across.
You can do both of those things, yeah. But the problem is that insurance companies aren't going to be able to afford. If you're just taking in sick people, you can't afford to pay the premiums, and you can't afford to pay for the medical costs coming from these sick people. That this company, if suddenly everybody who's sick is allowed to come on any insurance whatsoever, this company is going to be taking on huge losses. In order to fix those losses, in order to stop that hemorrhaging, that the financial hemorrhaging that they'll be doing, paying for all these medical expenses on sick people, they have to take money. This is the way insurance works, period, is they have to take money from people who aren't using their insurance and they're just paying for it. So you cannot set up a medical system where you have these two things, where you have force being put on insurance companies that are requiring them to pay for or to cover people with pre-existing conditions, and to still maintain their children on their insurance until age 26. Those two things require a mandate, because you'll have to force people to buy the insurance, because people aren't going to want to buy this. People who aren't sick aren't going to want to pay double, triple what they're paying or what they were paying a few years ago to have health insurance to not use it. So what's happening is sick people are just taking the penalty. This is you will still, in order to have these.
You aren't solving those two problems by letting them trade across. That's what I don't understand. You said that's how you would solve that problem, but you still have these people that are going to be refused for having pre-existing conditions.
How are you going to get a private company without redistribution of wealth, without them trying to take money from people who aren't using their health care? How are you going to fund out of a private company, convince a private company to invest in this venture? Here I'm pitching you what you're telling me. You're a private company, and I'm saying, all right, I want you to accept all of these sick people. We're going to cost you way more in overhead than what you're going to get for them. And you got to keep their kids or anybody on their policy until age 26. you can go do business across state lines, but good luck, and don't redistribute wealth. I don't want you to take money away from somebody who's healthy, and I don't want you to impose a mandate that you will have to do these things in order to pay for all the medical expenses that's going to be coming from these sick people. I don't think even just opening the state lines is enough to cover that. It's not going to increase competition enough to be effective. And you're still going to have this big pool of sick people who have a lot of medical expenses who are going to be draining these private insurance companies. Private insurance companies. What's that?
So they just out of luck?
Look, first of all, I'm not heartless entirely. What I think
I'm not saying heartless. I'm just saying you're basically saying they're out of luck. I mean, that's a pretty tough thing.
Yes. Unfortunately, look, if you and you're not out of luck, honestly, because we still have you can still go to the hospital, and they're by law required to treat you. The hospital has to treat you.
That's the point that I made
but you're out of luck on getting other people's money. That's what I think you should be out of luck on. If by using force to take money from someone else against their will, using the coercive force of government, I think you ought to be out of luck from stealing from your neighbor. That's my personal opinion. I consider that theft. So I personally would say, yes, you should be out of luck for that. Now, I think there's other roles. There's other ways to fill that gap. First of all, you can pay for your medical expenses. If you can afford it, you can pay for it. If you can't, perhaps someone will show charity and step in and help you. In addition to that, if the free market is actually free, and if the costs are being reduced due to the competition, it will be created through a straight up free market economy. The prices are going to drop because competition does that to prices, and the overall health expenses will go down instead of going up. As the government gets their hooks into this healthcare system, the price has gone up, as does everything that they do. It becomes less efficient and more expensive in the process. We get less bang for our buck every time we turn it over to the government, which is why I just don't think we ever should turn anything that cannot possibly be done by any other methods. I mean, that's the only reason why I would turn something to the government is, for example, national defense. I wouldn't hand that over to a private company, but that's just me. Anyway, Leo, I want to give you a moment here to plug your website and social media, YouTube, all that stuff, because I know you've been doing some big things out there, and also tell us some of the stuff you got coming up.
Well, it's YouTube with / Leo Stratton, LeoStratton. That's my channel. And I think I have like 250 plus videos on there. I just went over 1 million views combined last year, which I've been shooting for. And basically, I cover a lot of the events. It was great to be able to go. I did cover as much as I could up in D.C. and videotape everything. And then I try to videotape, say, if somebody's being interviewed, I try to also videotape, and then if it gets hacked up and, posed a different way on the news, I can say, no, that's not what the person said. So it kind of holds people accountable to be honest.
Absolutely.
And so I try to do that, and I think still probably one of the biggest things I'm going to concentrate is Second Amendment rights, because I'm in a progressive state that the people who are in charge of such things hate gun rights and love California and Washington D.C. No rights. So we're always continuously working hard as a group that supports Second Amendment to do anything and everything we can. So that's a given.
Absolutely.
And it's really going to be attacked.
So what do you think about Trump on the Second Amendment? Are you at all concerned about? Actually, I tell you what. Would you mind sticking with us to a break? I got to cut to a break real fast.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. So we'll come back after this break. When we come back, I want to talk with Leo about where he thinks Donald Trump stands on the Second Amendment in reference to the no-fly list and also the reciprocity or reciprocity, nationwide reciprocity that Donald Trump has mentioned favoring. So we'll be right back, guys. You don't want to miss what's coming up next.
Have you visited the On the Move with Mac Worley store? We've got amazing original design t-shirts, hoodies, cell phone cases, and coffee mugs for sale at OnTheMoveShow.com. Just click the shop link on our homepage. You won't want to miss out on the iHeart Open Carry and Bear Arms t-shirts for only $20 plus shipping. Again, just go to OnTheMoveShow.com and click the shop link on our homepage. Your purchases will help make the On the Move show bigger and better. We appreciate your support. Are you an activist who needs affordable flyers or brochures for passing out literature? Or a political candidate who's looking for business cards, logo designs, yard signs, or vehicle decals? Email me, Latasha Worley, for all your graphic design needs at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com. And don't forget to mention On the Move to get a 10% discount on all graphic design services.
I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, pledging my life, my fortune, and my sacred honor. So help me God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
We're back. Welcome to the second hour of the program. I'm still with Leo Stratton. Hey, Leo, you there?
I am.
All right. So I wanted to give you an opportunity here. You were talking about the Second Amendment in reference to Donald Trump. So do you have any shortcomings as far as or apprehensions about Donald Trump regarding the no-fly list? I don't know if you're aware of his position on that. Where do you think he stands, or are you familiar?
I haven't heard a great deal about it, but I'll be curious to see what your thoughts are on that. Well, I mean, what you've heard.
Well, Donald Trump has said that he supports banning people who are on the no-fly list from being able to get guns. He had the same position as Hillary Clinton on that issue. So that's something that does deeply concern me about that. How do you feel about that issue?
Well, I think it's a caution first thing, and I'm not defending Hillary Clinton in any way, but to say, oh, well, that's like Hillary Clinton, or it's like whatever. I mean, there's typically, gray area to everything, and if it's something that needs to be supported in general, to say, but then to have, taken on an individual basis, and then if somebody has an extenuating circumstance that can be addressed, that's a different thing. But to take it in general, there had to be there was a great deal of safety. We couldn't leave Washington D.C. and head back to New York City, JFK, the same way we approached it, because there was a no-fly zone, because they were still having the inauguration parade.
No, well, I'm
not an extenuating. I know, but I'm just saying that's an extenuating circumstance that's necessary at the time. Do you think
that we have a constitutional right to bear arms that our government can't infringe upon?
I do, unless you. I do agree with somebody that has as felony. That there are certain circumstances where an individual shouldn't be able to bear arms. If they've had excluding
the felony, because you and I disagree on that, but that would be a really long conversation about our criminal justice system that we'd have to have. But regarding, all right, for example, do you have any issue with the government just making a list and not having to have any reason or proof to a judge or anything? They just add your name to a list, and now you're denied your right to bear arms. They had no evidence. They gave you no due process. There was no judge, no jury. They just put you on a list, and you're denied a basic human right. Do you think that's fair? Do you think that's the way our society should work?
Okay, again, I go to a gray area. If we have a weighted judicial system with the Supreme Court where it's weighted in favor of the liberal, then there's no way that you're going to get your due process because of the fact that you know they're going to rule against you. But
so what does that have to do? I'm just trying to
it has
understand.
to do with the fact that that think that there should be an appeal system. Okay, and if there isn't, I disagree with that. If there was an absolute no appeal system, but if there is an appeal system where you can go and look at it,
you shouldn't have to appeal them taking your rights away without any due process. They didn't find you guilty. We have a presumption of innocence here, so they have to prove that you are guilty in order to take away rights. Whereas what the no-fly list does is it doesn't give you an opportunity to face your accuser. You have no judge. There's no jury. Somebody just adds your name to the list, and it's up to you. You don't even get notified when you get added to the list. It's up to you to find out that you've even been put on it when you try to fly or buy a gun in this case. You won't even know. So that is a complete and total violation of due process.
How do you get added to the no-fly list?
Anyone can put you on for any for example, Ted Kennedy was added to the no-fly list. He's a senator. It took him 6 months and lots of money, and he's a connected senator. Average people, you or I, we get added to the no-fly list, it's over. We're not going to be able to get off of that. It would take the rest of our lives and all of our fortune to do that. So I personally...
So we should have no fly list whatsoever, and how is that going to make it?
I'm not saying we shouldn't have an... first of all, I didn't say that we shouldn't have a no-fly list. That's a whole other thing. Personally, I'm against it entirely. But I'm not necessarily saying that. What I am saying is that specifically for the guns, just because... this is what Obama says. This is Obama and Hillary's policy, that if you can't fly, you shouldn't be able to buy a gun either. I disagree. I don't want more limitations on our Second Amendment rights. I don't want the government to be able to take away guns without any evidence, no probable cause, no reasonable suspicion. They're just going to take away your guns because you've been added to a list arbitrarily, and you don't even know. You can't even find out who added you or for what reason. This is the epitome, I believe, of Orwellian government at work. But I digress. Hey, Leo, we're out of time. I really do thank you for joining us, man. And for those of you out there, please check him out on YouTube. It's youtube.com/Leo Stratton, LeoStratton, Leo Stratton on YouTube. Check him out. Subscribe to him. Watch his stuff. He's doing big things. Leo, thanks so much for joining us, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, Matt. I appreciate it.
No problem.
It was nice talking to you. It's been too long.
Yeah, it has been too long, man. Good to talk to you, bud. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and cut to a commercial break. When we come back, we should be on the line with Mark Delphine. You don't want to miss what's coming up next.
Have you visited the On the Move with Mac Worley store? We've got amazing original design t-shirts, hoodies, cell phone cases, and coffee mugs for sale at OnTheMoveShow.com. Just click the shop link on our homepage. You won't want to miss out on the iHeart Open Carry and Bear Arms t-shirts for only $20 plus shipping. Again, just go to OnTheMoveShow.com and click the shop link on our homepage. Your purchases will help make the On the Move show bigger and better. We appreciate your support. Are you an activist who needs affordable flyers or brochures for passing out literature? Or a political candidate who's looking for business cards, logo designs, yard signs, or vehicle decals? Email me, Latasha Worley, for all your graphic design needs at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com. And don't forget to mention On the Move to get a 10% discount on all graphic design services.
This is Dan Sandini of DaylightDisinfectant.com, citizen journalist, friend of the late Andrew Breitbart, and cohort of James O'Keefe. I listen to On the Move with Mac Worley because the only time he's wrong is when he disagrees with me.
I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, pledging my life, my fortune, and my sacred honor. So help me God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Welcome to On the Move.
All right, we're back, and we are now into the second hour here. I certainly appreciate you all tuning in and sticking with us. If you made it this far in the show, please smash the thumbs up button or the like button. I would certainly appreciate it. You share it out with your friends and your family. Also, I would be remiss if I did not mention that we simulcast this broadcast on the 405media.com, the 405media.com, also youthrevolt.org, youthrevolt.org. Check them out. They're both doing really awesome stuff. Really big show. Really good stuff. All right. So at this point, we have Mark Delphine on the line. Hey, Mark, are you there?
I sure am. How are you?
Doing well. Doing very well. So for those of you out there, if you aren't familiar with Mark, he's a good friend of mine. We talk on this show frequently. He's a libertarian. He's typically left-leaning libertarian. I'm a libertarian. I am typically right-leaning libertarian. So we have some interesting conversations, do we not?
We do. I think so. I like them quite a bit.
Yeah, I think it's a good time. So this is it's a difference of opinion, which is what I love. I love to hear different opinions. I just had Leo on the show a moment ago, Leo Stratton. By the way, for those of you out there, if you want to get more from Leo, check out my Facebook, facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. I posted a bunch of links from Leo. You can check it there or on Twitter at OnTheMoveShow. You can also message us on the air if you're interested in joining in the conversation. So anyway, Mark, how you been, man? How you holding up?
I've been well. I'm one of those guys that I think I'm falling prey to all the hoopla, and I'm getting so involved in this type of banter that's coming on from the presidential election all the way down through. That I would be remiss if I didn't mention how almost hypocritical I've been, but also how I've really kind of fallen prey to all of it. So I've been involved, and I've been racking my head over so many different things and screaming at myself in the car when it comes to what's going on in the country right now. But, at the end of the day, I think it's all going to be for the best. So
I asked Leo this. Why do you think that Donald Trump won this election?
A number of reasons. One, he's an extremely great marketer of himself. He is essentially a cult of personality. He's been a celebrity for 30-plus years. He, just by virtue of being a billionaire, people automatically assume that to equate to success, and whether or not that's true is, he's obviously been pretty successful at what he's done. So whether or not, I guess, that would translate into being a successful leader is another opinion, but that's not what your question was. I think there are also a number of people who feel disenfranchised by the system, or that government is letting them down in lieu of or in exchange for a new cadre of voter or a new group of people. So the millennials, people of color, immigrants, women of power, the country is changing. And the dynamics of the country are changing so fast that the conservative group of people, and it doesn't have to be Republican. I think there are a lot of people that voted for Donald Trump that weren't Republican, but people who are wanting to conserve what it was that they knew and really loved about this country, they felt slipping away, and I think they also felt like people were not listening to them that used to listen to them. So, for instance, Bernie Sanders' comment on how the white working class, middle class American used to belong to the Democratic Party. And I think that Donald Trump struck a chord with them in a way that certainly Hillary Clinton did not, and so many Democrats for so long in the recent past have not. And I think that that group of people, coupled with his celebrity status, the fact that he received, close to $2 billion in free press, and the fact that he campaigned on a lot of division, divide and conquer works, and negative campaigning works, and there were just too many people that did not like or did not trust his opponent, I being one of them, although I never did vote for him, and I certainly wouldn't, you know my opinion on him. But I think, did that answer your question? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I think that that's the reason why he ultimately won. Hillary was not inspiring enough to get out the vote, and as much as everybody wanted, including several Republicans, as much as everybody, in the establishment that wanted Hillary Clinton, it kind of backfired.
That
PC kind of, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to add on to what you were saying. I think a big reason, and the one that I think that the blame should fall on is Hillary Clinton. I think that she was an extremely weak candidate and a very flawed person. I argue she's the most corrupt politician in U.S. history. I've said that to you before. I know we disagree on that, Mark, but this is where I stand, and this is where I think a lot of people stood during the election when they went to that voting booth. They were not so much voting for Donald Trump, but voting against Hillary Clinton, and I think that has a lot to do with it. Now, the left, what I'm noticing is blaming everything else, between Director Comey to Russia to all sorts of different things. So,
well, wouldn't you, if you actually lost to Donald J. Trump, wouldn't you search and draw for straws? Wouldn't you try to find somebody to blame? I mean, that could be the most disgraceful loss in Democratic Party history.
Well,
to lose to such a demagogue.
I don't necessarily.
I mean, I would.
I don't necessarily think that that this is as incredible when you look at what has happened these past 8 years. This was a natural reaction of that swinging pendulum. People got pushed back and back and back by 8 years of the Obama administration, and Hillary Clinton promised to continue the same stuff. She was not a change candidate. This was a change election year, and Donald Trump ran on the change that people were at least hoping for, or people were more fearful of the continuation of the Obama policies underneath a Hillary Clinton administration, in addition to the questions of her corruption and the server scandal and yada yada yada. But one of the things I'm noticing here is the difference in how the media is covering the aftermath of the inauguration. First of all, CNN declined to air the White House press conference live. Are you familiar with this story?
I saw it on your website. I wasn't familiar with it before then.
Okay, let me go ahead and read just a little section out of this here. This is a Variety.com article written by Brian Steinberg titled CNN Declines to Air White House Press Conference Live. CNN this evening declined to air a live press conference with the nation's new White House press secretary, pointing to a growing rift between the embryonic Trump administration and press corps that delivers it and that covers it, and undermining the credibility of Sean Spencer, a longtime Republican operative who has become the new spokesman for Donald Trump. So, first, they're not covering this event. Second, they're covering the inauguration photos. They're showing a picture from before the inauguration began and comparing it to Barack Obama's.
Obama.
Yeah, and they're making it seem like nobody showed up when they're showing a picture before the inauguration even started. As a comparison, they're being dishonest with that. That, I would argue, is on the level of fake news, while they're telling us that only Republicans exclusively produce fake news. And then, at the same time, they're covering the difference in what people are covering right now is striking. You see the Fox News channel, it's covering barely any of these riots. They've made the decision not to cover much of the riots. And the CNN is covering them, but they're calling them protests. So, Mark, in this kind of climate, what are your thoughts right now? I mean, there's a lot of stuff to chew on there. What in particular are your thoughts about the violence coming from the leftist protests, the destruction of private property? Do you think this is like a sour grapes, a bunch of spoiled kids overreacting on a loss and needing their safe space, or is this something that we should be tolerant of as a nation?
I can, from this perspective, I can tell who's more right-leaning and who's left-leaning just by the question and by my answer.
Okay.
So, number one, it's clear on which side you're asking this. I mean, there's a bit of spin there, which I can appreciate because I can see how this particular administration is not getting a quote-unquote fair shake according to their eyes and according to more right-leaning perspective. And I wouldn't deny that if you weren't dealing with such a cult of personality, if you weren't dealing with such a guy who's so self-aggrandized that he's all about talking about himself and how much coverage he's getting and how popular his campaign has been and how popular his inauguration was and how famous or how historic his election was. When you look at it, it was something out of 50-something elections, his was something like 37th as far as the biggest, as far as the widespread differences in the Electoral College. The reception at his ceremony, while yes, it was a little bit misleading. The picture that they showed for Obama's was at 11:47 a.m., and then the sparse picture that they showed for Donald Trump's was at 11:07 a.m. 40 minutes difference could make a big difference, but I think it was pretty clear that Obama's inauguration was larger just because it was much more historic. Donald Trump isn't, I don't know. I don't really care how many people showed up to the inauguration. What I find troubling is that not only does Donald Trump care so much about that, but that people are talking about this and about how this isn't a fair shake. And how this is fake news. Like this is like the genesis of fake news. When you're like, he actually stuck his press secretary on this to talk on the very first day about how people are reporting about how many people are showing up to his inauguration. Like that's not presidential at all. That's the kind of psychobabble, petulant talk from a little crybaby who doesn't like how he's being unfairly treated.
So the violence, but it's like the destruction of private property, the protests.
The destruction of private property. Let's talk about that, absolutely. I found, a couple of them. I saw one that was so troubling, the destruction of a Starbucks right under, I think it was a Bank of America.
Oh, now they've gone too far.
No, I saw them, and they were, yeah, that's funny. But, not my Starbucks, please, but no. But they were all in black, and it looked as though they were a lot, if we were talking about, and I'm not, I'm talking about they were all dressed in black, like they were all going in a movement type of thing. I think it was much more of an anarchist movement than it was the Women's March, even though I found it to be on the same day. The very first day in Washington, D.C., where 100 people were arrested, that was disgusting. That was horrible. They stooped to the same level as I would consider Donald Trump to stoop to, although I haven't seen him stoop to violence. But it's, the idea that...
I have to object on that one. Again, I find myself when you're on the show, and again, I'm not a Donald Trump supporter, I find myself being put in a position of defending him on some of your criticisms. And I will just say, the right, give me an example of where the right has done anything even remotely close to what these protests are doing, or what the riots coming out of Black Lives Matter, for example, in Ferguson.
I cannot at all. I can't give you one example. The Occupy movement and the Black Lives Matter movement on the left were decisively more violent than even the Tea Party. I mean, than the Tea Party was on the right. But of course, all you'll hear is negative, commentary about the Tea Party and how awesome Black Lives Matter is and how awesome the Occupy movement is. So there's absolutely a bias, absolutely, and it is absolutely unfair.
And I agree with you. And first of all, I just want to say I respect the fact that you're being consistent, and you can acknowledge that there is a bias there. Now, granted, let me also point out because I don't, I don't carry water for this guy. I don't. He's not.
No, I get it.
I never voted for Trump. Just a public service announcement. Never voted for Trump. But I do believe that his issue with the press here, and even going as far as like the CIA, I think what Donald Trump does, and what the language that he speaks is essentially domination and submission. He speaks like an animal language almost, like how wolves are in a pack with one another. He's going to dominate people and try to get them to back down. He'll threaten you. He'll try to affect your career or do something like that. He'll sue you. He'll do this with Megyn Kelly. All of the tactics that he uses. But first, he always tries to befriend you until he realizes he can't get you to do what he wants, and then he goes on the attack. This is what Donald Trump has done with the media. Donald Trump has already said that he wants to be able to sue the media for libel if they report on something that they know is negative against him. Negative, not false, but negative. For example, I think that this is something that we're going to be looking at in the future with the Donald Trump presidency, is him continuing to attack the free press, and not to mention free trade and all the other free things that libertarians support. So,
But can I to your point about that? Absolutely, he is. Again, I mean, he's the type of guy that is very interested in public opinion. He very much values people's appreciation of him, and he very much does not like people's criticism of him.
It's the brand,
and that is his brand. That is exactly who he is. And I don't know that even somebody like a Kellyanne Conway or his daughter could even deny that. That's pretty clear. And I think that's very fair. But what isn't fair is perhaps how the press is treating him as a presidential candidate. But you can't help but negatively respond when you are attacked like that. When Donald Trump goes on the attack, he holds no hold. He has no holds barred. He holds no punches. He goes on the offensive to such a degree that it's so vile and so petty that it's the type of thing that naturally you want to bring somebody like that down. I don't think anybody likes that type of bullying behavior, and whether or not you agree with his politics. And again, I agreed with Donald Trump's economic policies slightly more than I agree with Hillary's, but only because I couldn't stand Hillary's. But again, if I had to choose between one of the two as far as economics was concerned, I would have chosen Trump. But the fact that, you can't criticize anything without people without him freaking out on you, then naturally the press is going to retaliate. They're going to respond that way. Whoa. And when you have such a divided press, and when you have such a ratings-driven press nowadays, that it's about profit, and that's when the news is going to report on what they want you to hear or what they think their audience wants to hear in order to drive up ratings. So it's a numbers game. It's a business ploy, but it's also based on or in response to a man who is essentially conned and manipulated his way into a White House, because I don't think he believes almost any of the stuff that he was campaigning on. And that's why, to answer your question, how did he get elected? I think he manipulated his way into it. But I was trying to be nice before.
No, and I would agree. I think that Donald Trump, he knows how to use the media. He knows how to control the news cycle. He knows how to steer conversations in different directions. And instead of talking about a controversy he has or something, he's saying, "Well, you're attacking me. This is unfair." He goes on the attack. And tries to undermine. The problem is CNN is falling right into the trap consistently, over and over and over.
They're killing themselves, aren't they?
They keep shooting themselves in the foot by not just portraying a fair and accurate depiction of a story, a scenario. And the reason why I mentioned that photo in comparison to Trump's inauguration and Obama's is the difference in time. Yes, I think the 40 minutes does make a significant difference. But more importantly, it just shows the agenda. The agenda is what Donald Trump is complaining about. I think he's fair in saying that CNN is a biased media outlet that is only going to run a story if it's going to have a negative opinion on Donald Trump. Now, granted, I don't think that Donald Trump should start suing them. I don't think Donald Trump should limit their voice. I think the free market here is going to kick in, and people are just going to stop tuning in to the Communist News Network, and because they don't want to get misinformation. People are going to be onto this eventually. And the fact that CNN and other liberal organizations are covering these protests as protests and not riots as they should be called, and moreover, calling his presidency potentially illegitimate. As, by the way, I have a clip here from Representative John Lewis last week. He was talking about how he believes Donald Trump is an illegitimate president. Here's the clip.
You have forged relationships with many presidents. Do you plan on trying to forge a relationship with Donald Trump?
You know, I believe in forgiveness. I believe in trying to work with people. It's going to be hard. It's going to be very difficult. I don't see this president-elect as a legitimate president.
You do.
So, Mark, what do you think about that? Is President Trump, is he legitimate?
He was legitimately elected. I agree with that. Now, whether or not, let's just say, for instance, the whole Russia thing is just a joke, right? I mean, that's not it. Then yes, if Russia did have something to do with this, like if there was actual, if there's actually any smoke or fire to that smoke, we're talking about a big deal.
Let's be clear. Let's be crystal clear here, because I want to make sure what accusations are being levied here. From what I have been hearing in the portrayal, again, from the media, they've been making it seem like Donald Trump has received help by the Russians in the form of hacking electoral systems, as in voting machines. That this is the portrayal that I continue to see.
I don't know how many people believe that.
What do you claim? I just want to make sure. What you said, where see if there's any fire with the smoke. What are you claiming that Russia did?
I'm not claiming they did anything. I said if. Now, if there is a big deal, there's a big if. And this is where I'll kind of really turn the tables right back around and go, if Barack Obama was not born in the United States but born in Kenya, then yeah, maybe. But look at how far down that rabbit hole we went. We got nowhere with it, except Donald Trump got into the White House somehow by perpetuating a lie for 5 years. And even if it wasn't a lie, it's pretty much over, and all he did was pretty much benefit from something like that.
So here's the question.
If
the Russian government, let's turn around to the question at hand. Let's assume, and I just want to clarify, what are your charges here? What do you think that the Russians did? I mean, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about hacking election systems? I think what the Russians did is that,
no, not election systems. I would suggest that they hacked emails and they reported those emails and gave all of that information to, not all of it. I'm saying the most, if I were to say something did happen, I would say that, the worst of what would have happened, in my opinion, is that Russia hacked into the DNC, grabbed the emails, not only helped to release them, but secretly gave them to, or just basically transferred the information to Donald Trump's campaign.
Okay, so let's...
And if that's the case, then that's very similar to kind of like a Watergate break-in, right? You're tapping into the opposite, but only a foreign government that we aren't necessarily allies with at all.
Okay, let's assume that, first of all, it wasn't Donald Trump's campaign that got it. It was WikiLeaks that released the information. So it wasn't through Donald Trump's campaign that we learned this information about the hacks. It was through WikiLeaks.
But if they learned it first, is what I'm saying. How did Donald Trump... I mean, we don't know whether or not Trump's campaign wasn't being fed information, and I think that's the only accusation that I would continue to bite on.
Well, that accusation, that claim has never been levied. That Donald... So unless... Are you making a claim off of, on your own here? Or... I've been looking. I haven't seen anyone pointing out any evidence whatsoever of Donald Trump having knowledge about Russian hacking prior to... and being fed information from the Russians. Are you aware of
it? And I highly doubt that you would. But my point is that it seems a little bit... My problem with it is it's just how buddy-buddy this man is when we don't know... Because he wouldn't release his tax returns, we don't know whether or not he has business dealings in Russia.
Agreed.
And if he has business dealings in Russia, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. It is a conflict of interest, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's treason or that it's a potentially impeachable offense. I mean, if he were to put his money into or is holding into a blind trust. Oh wait, I don't think he's going to do that, is he? But my point is that if you were to look at it from a standpoint of saying this is a man who has praised Vladimir Putin, who has said that he's spoken to him during the campaign, who had said that he has, I mean, their campaigns have spoken to one another, who has said that, you know, we should really, I mean, who has appointed as his Secretary of State a man who is the CEO of a company that has tremendous dealings in Russia.
Okay,
and
but that doesn't prove any collusion with Russia. That just that he
no,
hired
but it proves nothing. Of course, I'm not saying that it proves it, but what I'm saying is that that's something I would buy it on, considering that's just not. I mean, all of that is a lot of smoke right there. There's a lot of coincidence right there that looks fishy.
Yeah, this at best to me is sounding conspiratorial. I don't believe, first of all, there was any collusion whatsoever between the Donald Trump campaign and Russia to hack the DNC, and nor is there any evidence suggesting this. So this is a wild accusation. This is a conspiracy theory right now. Could it have happened? Yes, but there's no evidence. So why are we talking about it? What I'm curious about is if Russia did hack the DNC, release the information to WikiLeaks as what has actually happened, and what the CIA and other investigative agencies are saying, that Russia hacked the DNC, hacked Podesta's emails, and then gave that information to WikiLeaks. If that happened, is Donald Trump guilty? Does that make him illegitimate?
Of course not.
Okay, so that's Russia's wrongdoing, and I think Russia should get theirs at some point. We don't like Russia meddling in our election. We shouldn't accept that. There should be consequences.
When you say we, that's where I start to go, this is where the argument comes from. Donald Trump most certainly does not dislike that type of thing.
Agreed.
Except the backlash that might
about
come
you
back
and I,
on him, or an unfair accusation.
I'm talking about you and I. When I say we, I'm talking about you and I right now. I'm assuming we don't like Russia involved in the election. Maybe I'm wrong.
You've assumed correctly.
Okay. So I personally, I don't care what side of the aisle Russia's trying to help, whether or not it's quote my side or quote the other side. I don't want Russia involved in our elections, and there should be some consequences for them down the line. We should be playing harder ball with them and really positioning ourselves against them, because I think they are one of our greatest geopolitical foes right now.
Obama did put additional sanctions on that.
Agreed.
But sorry to interrupt.
Agreed.
But go ahead.
Agreed. And again, I think Russia only knows how to respond to strength. If we start trying to buddy up to them, they're going to try to manipulate us and try to see what they can get away with. And again, I think Putin's goal is to reconstitute the Soviet Union. So the question that we need to be asking ourselves is, how much risk are we willing to take against Russia here? When are we willing to actually draw a red line and follow through with that? That needs to be a conversation we should have on dealing with Russia, because we're going to need to have the answer to that question very soon. I think Russia's going to push us to the point where we're going to need to know when we're willing to fight and when we're willing to just let Russia have that battle won. So
this is my point, though, Mac. When you're talking about we, I'm pretty sure you're not talking about you and I now. You're talking about the United States. I'm talking about the United States government.
The United States government.
And when you have a man who's at the helm of that, who's at the head of all of that, who's basically in favor of what has happened, why do you think that we are ever really going to go forward with any kind of either accusation, a charge? You see what I'm saying? Is that even though there wasn't necessarily a proof of collusion, that just because there's an absence of proof doesn't mean it didn't happen.
It's not proof either. So, and again, we have a presumption of innocence. There's a presumption of innocence. So don't convict them in the court of public opinion on a conspiracy theory without any evidence whatsoever. This is the only thing I'm saying. Is that
if it's just because it's a theory, I mean, when you say conspiracy theory, it almost makes you sound whacked up. But if there's just by definition of a theory with this, under this pretense, it's going to be a conspiracy.
The question is where this all started is Donald Trump illegitimate. Your claim that maybe there was some kind of collusion between Russia is a claim that no one else is making and there's no evidence for. This is why I'm calling it a conspiracy theory. It is a conspiracy theory. There's no evidence to suggest this. But my point overall is if Russia did hack the DNC and possess his emails and release those emails, Russia's guilty, not Donald Trump. That doesn't make Donald Trump illegitimate, does it not?
No, I didn't, and I've never disagreed with you whatsoever on that. I've said clearly from the start that he is a legitimate, he legitimately won. Unlike what he would have said if his opponent won, which would be the system is rigged, he won. So I don't, and that's just the way I don't see any logical thinking person who didn't see that. I mean, you can blame a lot of people for it,
your thoughts,
but he definitely did win.
Your thoughts are that Donald Trump is a legitimate president, and I just want to clarify you did condemn violence from the protesters out there screaming, "Not my president," and I'm assuming you condemn that message as well, "Not my president," because it is their president since he's legitimate, correct?
Way to leave the witness on that one. I'll kind of refer back to Sean Hannity, who continuously referred to Barack Obama as not his president, and how Fox News continuously delegitimized that particular president. And if it's okay on the right, then it should be okay on the left to say that that person is not your president if he doesn't represent you or your values, if you didn't vote for him, and if you don't believe that this man is not only qualified, but also, respectable enough. If you don't respect him in that position, then, yeah, I mean, I could see why somebody says that they're not his president or her president.
I see. So, I will just say, you're free to say whatever you want in regards to your opinion. If you think Donald Trump is an illegitimate president, anyone out there, I think you're wrong. I think that's based wholly on a conspiracy theory. And again, most of the
then is Sean Hannity wrong, and is Fox News wrong by perpetuating a lie over the basically 5 years that he is not a legitimate president?
Who, Barack Obama?
About the birth certificate.
And I've never been a birther. I'm not one of the ones claiming that Barack Obama isn't legitimate. He's a legitimate president. So is Donald Trump. Now, both, I believe I'll have a lot to oppose. I obviously had a lot with Barack Obama, but I believe this administration is going to bring forth new challenges to the liberty movement, one of which being that the right is, for some reason, the crux of the liberty movement. It seems like, I'm hoping that I'll be wrong, but it seems like the left hasn't understood that checks and balances and slow government and actually trying to restore individual rights is the best way to combat a all-powerful executive that you oppose, that opposes your beliefs. I'm hoping that the left is really going to start getting into this whole thing called limited government. What are you thinking? Do you think it's possible, Mark?
Is it possible for the left to really start taking on what the right should have been taking, or what? I'm not sure what you're
exactly.
asking.
That was you worded that.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is possible. Where this is one of those few situations, because I used to be more right-leaning libertarian. I think maybe just because by virtue of me living in the middle of a very, very socialist hill in Seattle. I mean, we did elect as a city councilor an open socialist. Not we, like as in me, but that's my representative. Anyway, my point is that I have finally been able to side with and understand a lot of my liberal friends and identify with them, especially in Seattle. These people are adamantly opposed to this man, and I started going, okay, now I can finally see it. The challenge that I have is the inconsistency of it. You have this huge women's movement, 2 million protesters across the country and across the world protesting a man. And for the most part, almost all of it was nonviolent, for the most part. I mean, a tiniest fraction of people, bad apples ruining the bunch, if they did ruin the bunch. But for the most part, these women, and majority of the violence that I saw were from men and from people who were dressed as anarchists, not that we're in the women's movement. So I want to separate those two right there. But the women's quote-unquote feminist movement, what really drove me nuts about this is that they specifically excluded the right to life women from participating. And that's the beginning of a really bad vibe that they're sending out there, that, if you want to join us, you have to also think like us on certain issues. as opposed to, hey, we're all opposed to this tyrant that for one reason or another, whether you don't like his free trade or you don't like the fact that, he bragged about sexually assaulting women, or you don't like the fact that, he goes on tirades on Twitter, or for whatever reason, and I could spend the entire rest of your show talking about how horrible of a man this is, but we need to band together if we are to be in unity to say, absolutely not. We don't accept this or appreciate what this person is saying or representing. And we can find unity. That is the saddest part of all of this, is that we are more divided than we ever have been. And this man actually had the audacity to get up there in his inaugural address and spout off the words unity without cracking a smile, because it's such a joke. This man campaigned his entire campaign on divide and conquer. And then he starts to call for now that there's unity, when he even suggested that the legitimacy of the popular vote was because of the fact that millions of people risked their freedom, basically, by committing a fraudulent act of voting multiple times, when the only people that have been found guilty of voter fraud in this past election that I've heard of were people that were trying to vote twice for Donald Trump. So I can see why people are upset, but it really upsets me that we can't band together. Where you and I can. We might disagree on a few things, but I think we both disagree about Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And I think that I can still have good conversations with my friends and family about other issues. But again, I've fallen prey to that hoopla and to that hype of, I've gotten really upset. Like, I got really depressed, really upset with my family and my friends who voted for him, and I didn't understand it, and I divided, and I just felt so divided, and I felt so much hate in my heart about it. And then I started taking a couple of steps back and going, this is so wrong. I'm falling prey to exactly what I believe this man is attempting to do, which is divide and conquer. And I feel like I've been divided, and I certainly feel like I've been conquered. And that's why I need a little bit more of a pep talk. So I wanted to talk on your show today, Mac.
Okay, so let's have that pep talk. All right. First, I have some things, some concerns about Donald Trump. So I'll just put it out there. I think there are going to be a lot of negative things, but like, for example, let's look at the LGBT issues. Okay. I don't particularly think that Donald Trump is that bad as far as from an LGBT standpoint. I've heard people have issues with Mike Pence, and I know you and we've talked about the Religious Freedom Restoration Act before, and you disagree with it. I actually don't, but I only agree with it because of people being forced to do things against their religious beliefs. I believe in a pure, unadulterated ability to discriminate for any reason whatsoever. I don't care what it is, and I want to know who the racists are in my group. I want to know who the sexists are. I want to know who are the bigots so that I can avoid them and stop doing business with them or stop associating with them. So
I don't disagree with you on that at all. I don't at all.
Because, and I know we've had this discussion. You and we agree that typically, in theory, in philosophy, we should be able to discriminate. But we can't because of the Civil Rights Act of 1965. So because of that, the RFRA is now giving this ability for Christians or anyone of any faith to be able to not participate in a service or to be able to opt out basically of providing services for somebody if it violates their deeply held religious beliefs, which is something that I agree with, and I'm not positive. Where do you feel about that? How do you feel about the RFRA? Are you against it? Are you for it?
Well, we talked about this before. Now, I kind of take the same stance that Gary Johnson took in this election, is that if we are not going to take any other protected class off the table and say that you can discriminate against anybody for any reason, including race and gender and religion and all of that, then you should also include the LGBT community. But in principle, I believe that you should be able to discriminate against anybody for any reason whatsoever, because exactly the same reason as what you did. I want to know.
So I'm just curious, because here's where I think there's a hole in your argument, because it's not a sin in any religion, to my knowledge, to be male or female. It's not a sin in any religion to be black or white. As far as the religion goes, and what we're talking about specifically, LGBT rights, in Christianity, many believe that it is a sin to be a homosexual or commit homosexual acts. Okay, so they believe that the ceremony would be them being part of that, and that would be against their religion. It's not a sin in any religion, to my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong, to be male or female or another race or anything like that, correct?
Actually, at the beginning of when marriage licenses existed, and this is a bit of a tangent that I'm not sure, how far we want to go down, but I'm saying at the beginning of issuing religious licenses, the basis of this was to stop black men from marrying white women.
But we're
so
talking
they
about
issued
the
these
state.
types of things. And it was based on religion. It was based on interracial marriage is against the Bible. It's against God's word. And so that right there, they used this as a tool to basically, continue their discrimination, or to continue, or to try to stop something from happening. Now, again,
are you very religious, Mark? Have you practiced Christianity or Catholicism or anything like that? You have?
Yes, I was baptized Catholic. I was raised little Catholic, and I converted to Christianity, or really kind of found God in my early 20s.
Do you believe that the Bible actually has anything written in it about about not dating outside your race or that kind of thing?
I honestly don't care. I just think it's, to me, it's that anybody should be able to discriminate. But when you're dealing with something like the RFRA, again, I don't really want to force a photographer to go to a wedding. I think it's silly. But I also just wish that people would kind of, again, I wish that this wasn't an issue. I don't think Mike Pence is the devil because he promoted this issue. I think people have very deep concerns with being forced by the government to serve people, especially in opposition of their religion. And quite frankly, I don't want a photographer or a florist or anybody participating in my wedding unless they're passionate about providing me that service. And I can most certainly say that if somebody's opposed to same-sex marriage, and if hopefully someday I could ever get married, find a guy that I really want to marry and marry him, then I'm going to be somebody that doesn't want somebody there who is in opposition to it. And so, to me, I wish my gay brothers and sisters would just wake up to the reality that it's, that type of a law is okay. They just, in some way or another, and with all due respect to a lot, I could get in a lot of trouble for saying this if it ever got out, but it's like, I think a lot of people just try to play the victim. People, and it's like when you've been playing the victim, because they have been. Don't get me wrong. The LGBT community has been victims of a lot of government problems for a long time. Refusal to serve the military, to give blood, to get married. There's a lot of reasons why the LGBT community should distrust government and to not like it. But now they're given this opportunity to be protected by government, and so I can see naturally why a lot of people want to. But I go in opposition to that. I kind of do the reverse of it and say, screw you, government. You should have never gotten involved in my personal life to begin with. And now that somebody's going to provide me with a protected class, well, yeah, I don't want to ever be fired, especially for, being gay. But again, I don't want to work for a company that doesn't want to hire me because I'm gay. So I take a bit of what I would call a higher road or a different path on it. I just don't know that I firmly, to answer your initial question, I don't believe Donald Trump is a homophobic person. I don't believe that he's the guy that, wants to stop gays from getting married. I think he's already said this in a 60 Minutes interview right after he was elected, is that he said, that court case has already been solved. It's recent. We're not going to overturn it. In other words, we're not going to put the toothpaste back in that tube.
So
to kind of move along.
To be clear, Donald Trump is the only president in the history of our nation to take office while supporting homosexual marriages. So he thinks that they should, homosexuals should be able to get married, as do I. I think it's a religious ceremony and the government should be involved. But he's the only one that's ever taken office holding that position. Barack Obama, when he first got elected in 2008, He did not. He thought it was between a man and a woman, and then he changed his mind. He, quote-unquote, evolved on the issue. So, and actually Hillary Clinton, by the way.
Yeah, well, Hillary Clinton's proved herself to be a polecat. I don't know, and frankly, I don't care what she believes anymore. Barack Obama, at that particular time, and again, I'm not a huge fan of Obama, although I do like him a lot more than I think a lot of...
Oh, looks like we lost Mark there. My computer shut off. That is awesome when you're doing live radio and your computer just shuts off out of nowhere. I'll go ahead and boot this back up here and see if I can get Mark to call back in a second. I'm sending him a text right now here. This is funny when this happens. Anyway, so, right now, I just don't think that Donald Trump is this racist bigot that he's being made out to be. Granted, I've said that I believe that Donald Trump has nationalist tendencies, and I believe that he's a progressive. And in other words, I think that he's a socialist, essentially. So you have National Socialism. That does have the platform, the setup, the ideological setup there for the Nationalist Socialist Workers' Party of Germany, which was the Nazis' party. But I don't think Trump is Hitler. And I don't think he's this hateful guy that the left seems to think he is. And I personally think that he's going to end up essentially not being as bad of a president for the left, doing things that are going to step on their toes or get them angry. I don't think that he's anti-LGBT. I don't think that he's racist. I don't think that he's KKK. I don't think there's evidence to suggest this, especially when you consider the fact that Donald Trump has repeatedly disavowed David Duke's endorsement, the Grand Wizard or whatever of the KKK. He's like the head honcho over there of the Ku Klux Klan. He's disavowed him. So personally, I think there is a potential for Trump to escalate the situation and really revamp neo-Nazism, but I don't think he has, and I don't think he's saying that he's going to do that. He is going to impose tariffs, which are concerning because it's going to shrink our GDP. So I'm trying to talk to Mark here. Mark said the line's unavailable. My computer still hasn't booted up, Mark. I apologize. I'm texting him this now. Computer still booting up. Okay. All right. So opening Skype now. Sorry about that. This is crazy when this happens on live radio. But hey, man, you just roll with the punches and you got to do what you can do here. So, all right. Computer's still loading. Still bringing up more stuff. So yeah, this is my concern, and I'm also concerned about Donald Trump's moves against the press. It does concern me. I am concerned that he's going to try to limit the free speech of the press, and again, the closed markets, tariffs. It's not free market. That's government intervening in the free market. I don't think is a good idea. I think it's typically led to bad things, and I don't think the government can handle the economy better than the free market. But anyway, we're going to cut to a commercial break, and when we come back, we should be back on the line with Mark. You don't want to go anywhere.
Have you visited the On the Move with Mac Worley store? We've got amazing original design t-shirts, hoodies, cell phone cases, and coffee mugs for sale at OnTheMoveShow.com. Just click the shop link on our homepage. You won't want to miss out on the iHeart Open Carry and Bare Arms t-shirts for only $20 plus shipping. Again, just go to OnTheMoveShow.com and click the shop link on our homepage. Your purchases will help make the On the Move show bigger and better. We appreciate your support. Are you an activist who needs affordable flyers or brochures for passing out literature? Or a political candidate who's looking for business cards, logo designs, yard signs, or vehicle decals? Email me, Latasha Worley, for all your graphic design needs at latashawurley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com. And don't forget to mention On the Move to get a 10% discount on all graphic design services.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
All right, we're back. And we are still on the line with Mark Delphine. Hey, Mark, are you there?
I sure am.
Okay, I apologize about that technical difficulty. So, we've talked extensively here about Trump. I actually want to change the subject here to something a little more light. Something I thought this would be a fun conversation for us to have, Mark. I got an article here in front of me. It's called, this is on Thrillist.com, titled "Wendy's Just Embarrassed the Hell Out of a Twitter Troll." Are you familiar with Wendy's, their new campaign here saying that their beef is never frozen?
No. Actually, vaguely.
Vaguely. Okay, so Wendy's is going basically on the attack here against McDonald's and Burger King, and actually they're people sending messages to them on Twitter as well. They've kind of changed their attitude. They've changed their swagger a little bit. And here's the article. I'll go ahead and read it. This is written by Tony Maravik. It was dated on the 3rd of January. So Wendy's recently unleashed a spicy new sriracha-covered menu, but that's hardly the only fire the company's serving up, as evidenced by its spectacular response to a Twitter troll this week. The exchange all started when a user who went by @NHRide responded to a generic tweet from Wendy's that reminded us for the zillionth time it uses fresh, never frozen beef in its burgers, basically alleging the redheaded chain's longtime motto is a big greasy lie. By all means, go ahead and make a joke about a beef. So the tweet in question here, they send a tweet out. It says, "Our beef is way too cool to ever be frozen." And then NHRide, he says, "Your beef is frozen and we all know it. Y'all know we laugh at your slogan, fresh, never frozen, right? Like, you're really a joke." Wendy's responds, "Sorry to hear that, but you're wrong. We've only ever used fresh beef since we were founded in 1969. NHRide says, "So you deliver it raw in a hot truck?" Wendy says, "Where do you store cold things that aren't frozen?" NHRide says, "Y'all should give up. At McDonald's, you guys beat the dope butt breakfast." I don't want to say that word. NHRide, you don't have to bring them into it just because you forgot refrigerators existed for a second there. So they're basically just ripping it. And this thread got long. I'm looking at it right now. There's tons of people are commenting here, making fun of this person. So I kind of feel bad for it. But first of all, Wendy's is claiming that they never freeze their burgers. And I'm just curious, Mark, do you believe this claim that they never freeze their burgers? This is fresh meat?
I tell you, I used to joke with a friend of mine about Wendy's being the fastest of fast food. Like, I could literally, and I had a little Honda Prelude, like a little sports car back in the day, and I said that I could literally drive through with my VTEC engine roaring, order, and then race through to the drive-through window, and they'd throw me out my burger. But when I took a bite into it, my teeth would get cold because it was so damn cold in the middle of it. And I tell you, I don't know whether or not it was ever frozen, but the amount of time that they stick it in a microwave before they serve it to you is not enough because it's pretty cold sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're saying that they never freeze it. They must refrigerate it and transport it to each restaurant. I don't understand the logistics and how much that has to cost, but they seem to be floating this out. And I think, by the way, this isn't the only kind of humorous exchange they've had with some of their customers. I think they're trying to become a little edgier and maybe exploit the fact, if they are, in fact, the only one that is fresh. I think maybe they're trying to kind of tap into that healthy food kind of market and maybe be the healthier, or at least try to claim to be or seem to be the healthier alternative to McDonald's and Burger King. But do you think there's a real big difference here in either taste or healthiness between a frozen and unfrozen burger?
I don't. I mean, for me to taste test the difference between Wendy's and McDonald's would be kind of like if I were to tell you, I like Bud Light more than Coors Light or vice versa. I mean, they're both lousy beers, but they still do the job, you know what I mean? So it's like, I don't go to Wendy's for, like, the exquisite gourmet taste of their burgers. I go there because I'm probably, coming down from my high or I'm still drunk, you know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. Wendy's, to me, like, that's their competitive advantage. They're probably slipping when it comes to their, when you look at McDonald's and how well, they're advertising with You know, they've been able to compete with Starbucks on the coffee side. They've been able to, you know, really revitalize a lot of the issues when it comes to the trans fat, and when it comes to the issues of, you know, healthiness of their salads and their yogurts. I mean, you know, McDonald's is doing something really big with that. Whereas Wendy's, after that guy Dave died, I think that they, you know, had a bit of a setback, and they've been trying to push different buttons, but it seems to me like, you know, maybe this is their angle, to go the Twitter angle, because, hey, if it can get you in the White House, I mean, it probably could sell you some burgers, you know?
Yeah, I knew you were going to go there before you even did it. Oh, man. That's funny. Okay, so...
I mean, that, you know, we got to ask ourselves as a country, how sad is it when a man can go on Twitter tirade and win the White House? You know, this,
hey, maybe they'll win the burger battle here, hopefully, but they won't win the war.
Do you like them better? I mean, do you like them better? What do you like better? I mean, I don't know. To me, the best fast food is probably, I would say, Burger King, because they're like, you know, fresh off the grill. But, you know, if you're looking for variety, I'd say like Jack in the Box. Some of the gourmet stuff from Carl's Jr. What do you guys have over there in Kentucky?
Well, I mean, if I'm going to eat fresh, I typically don't go for burger. Like, the freshness of the burger doesn't really, I don't think, come into the equation in my thought process. Typically, if I'm eating fresh, it's like, you know, Subway, eat fresh. That's kind of that's their slogan. I would take, by the way, any Subway executives out there, I'd be happy to take your Subway money. I'd be glad to take that. I hear you guys are also, by the way, looking for a new face of Subway in light of recent events. So just put it out there.
And you're so pretty, Mac. You really should. You know, if you went shirtless, I bet you'd sell a lot of Subway.
Nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants. 2 shades whiter than chalk. Nobody wants to see that there. So, all right. So
you'd be surprised.
So I wanted to end this on a positive note here. What are you hopeful for in the next 4 or 8 years? I mean, other than Donald Trump getting removed from office, what about his campaign or about his administration? What do you hope that he'll do?
Sure, a couple of things. One is, while I think his education secretary is a little cuckoo, I like her positions on vouchers. I like school choice. I like more emphasis on charter schools, less, I like more decentralization of education, where, you know, maybe if you had minimum standards, but to me, for the most part, localities know how to educate their kids better, and if you take the stranglehold out of or from the Department of Education and teachers unions and you put it into the hands of the people, you'll have better educated kids. His emphasis on infrastructure, while I'm opposed to government spending on, you know, big, huge infrastructure ploys and boondoggles, because we've seen how that worked in 2008. I mean, didn't Obama spend about $1 trillion in the stimulus package? And I don't see too many better roads and bridges, but maybe there are. You know, his best comment that he made in the entire debates, and this is something that I actually felt a little inspired by, is when he was blasting Hillary Clinton for voting for the Iraq War and for the funding of it. And I do believe that he actually did change his mind right off the bat and said that he didn't support it. But his comment that we've spent $6 trillion in Iraq, we could have rebuilt our country twice with that. And he thundered away at him with that. And that's the type of thing where I see a lot of the reasons why the Bernie Sanders crowd is getting some momentum behind them. While I'm not a socialist, I don't believe in government, massive government spending on a federal level. But if it's going to be spent on war or on building infrastructure in the United States, of course I'd choose the latter. I don't know many people who would disagree besides the military-industrial complex. And so his idea about putting a lot of more Americans to work on building infrastructure in the country is something that, if it does happen, and again, I'm opposed to the spending of it, I would look forward to seeing what the results of that would be. In other words, if I can't control what's going to happen, I at least want some good to happen from it.
Yeah.
And, I don't believe in his ideas that women should be punished for abortion. I don't, again, think that he's anti-gay. I don't think we're going to be taking that away. But when you look at his entire cabinet, they're, pretty anti-LGBT. I fear that kind of stuff. I fear a drug war being enhanced. I fear a stop and frisk. But when you're looking at it, I think education is something I do really look forward to, and perhaps, the decentralization of that. And, when it comes to, rebuilding the United States, or when it comes to the idea of lowering taxes and regulations, which are what sends jobs overseas, those are the kinds of things that, you don't need a protectionist tariff type of policy in order to get jobs to be created here by the private sector. You need to lower the barriers of entry. And if he gets those types of things accomplished, where you lower the barriers to entry, you don't have such a higher minimum wage, you don't have so much government spending on things that the private sector can compete on, you don't have huge taxes and regulations that really squeeze out the little guy, then those are the types of things that the Democratic approach has failed us in, has failed business in, and that's what was really shown to actually have worked with supply side, aka trickle-down economics. Much as the left wants to disagree with that, we saw the most rapid increase in science and technology in the 80s after Reagan's economic package was passed, and throughout the decades of the 90s and the 2000s and this decade. All of that are ripple effects from a Reagan administration of lowering taxes, lowering regulations, lowering government spending. And if he can get something like that accomplished, I will tip my hat and say credit where credit is due. I just don't know that he's going to.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't think things are going to end up great, but I'm hopeful for the future. We'll see. I personally think that Donald Trump is walking into a lose-lose situation. I don't think that the economy is going to last. I think he's going to be the one left holding the hot potato when the music ends, and this economy comes collapsing down, as I've been saying. It's going to, and I think he's not going to be the main reason why it happens, but I believe tariffs and these nationalist policies that he's trying to push through, the American First policies that have been proven historically to shrink the economy time and time. Every time we do it, it shrinks our GDP. The issue is he's going to start it. He's going to instigate it, but he's not going to be the one that was responsible for creating the bubble in the first place. But he's, I think, liable to pop it. But hey, Mark, I know you got to run, so I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for joining me on the show. You have that website, the Libertarian Leadership website, right? You want to promote that?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are a Libertarian or Libertarian-leaning candidate and you're interested in getting involved on the state or local level, getting involved in running for office, we have a proven system that trains and develops candidates at the state and local level on how to win. So how to get out there and shake the babies and kiss the hands, how to raise money, how to make a better marketing campaign, how to use people like Natasha Worley on those types of marketing campaigns and getting your lawn signs and getting those types of marketing materials together. We help out with that type of thing. So it's a very, very effective program. It's extremely affordable. It's only $20 a month. And if you're interested in running for office, or if you know somebody is, go to libertarianleadership.org and find out a little bit more about it.
So you said shake the babies and kiss the hands. This is why libertarians don't get elected. You guys have been doing it this whole time. Okay.
You're doing it wrong, boys. Yeah.
All right.
But,
all right. Well, Mark, I really appreciate you joining me. As usual, you're an awesome guest, and I really enjoyed talking to you. I'll definitely have you back on soon. Okay, bud?
My pleasure, Mac. Keep fighting the good fight.
Thanks, you too. All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and cut to a commercial break. When we come back, we're going to dive right into some of the featured topics here. I want to talk a little bit more about Donald Trump. I got a couple articles about Donald Trump that I found particularly interesting. And then I want to talk about the left, these protesters. Got a whole bunch more on the agenda. You don't want to miss what's coming up next, so don't go anywhere.
Have you visited the On the Move with Mac Worley store? We've got amazing original design t-shirts, hoodies, cell phone cases, and coffee mugs for sale at OnTheMoveShow.com. Just click the shop link on our homepage. You won't want to miss out on the iHeart Open Carry and Bear Arms t-shirts for only $20 plus shipping. Again, just go to OnTheMoveShow.com and click the shop link on our homepage. Your purchases will help make the On the Move show bigger and better. We appreciate your support. Are you an activist who needs affordable flyers or brochures for passing out literature? Or a political candidate who's looking for business cards, logo designs, yard signs, or vehicle decals? Email me, Latasha Worley, for all your graphic design needs at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com. And don't forget to mention On the Move to get a 10% discount on all graphic design services.
I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, pledging my life, my fortune, and my sacred honor. So help me God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
Hello, MacPack. Welcome to the Overdrive Hour. This is Hour 3. This is where we talk about all the stuff that we didn't have an opportunity to get to in the first 2 hours of the show. So let's recap. What did we do today? We had Leo Stratton, again, good friend of mine. He's a Trump supporter. He's very right-leaning. We had a very interesting conversation. He gave his take on the election, Donald Trump's inauguration. He was there for the inauguration. He gave his take. And then we had Mark on, and Mark gave his take. So now, let's start diving into some of these featured topics, and let's focus a little bit more on Donald Trump for a moment here. I'm going to breeze through some of these articles here I found interesting about Donald Trump. Donald Trump is forced to give up his beloved Android. This is an article written by Killian Bell on cultofmac.com, M-A-C, Mac as in Macintosh. Donald Trump has been forced to give up his beloved Android smartphone as he steps into the White House. He's now been issued a secure, encrypted device approved by the Secret Service alongside a new phone number that only a few people possess. Trump had been using a Samsung Galaxy device, according to a profile published by the New York Times last October. He never used email on it, but as we all know, he's a serial tweeter, which has earned him over 20.5 million followers so far. The president cannot use any old smartphone. It has to be super secure. Sadly, Samsung devices running Android are not, according to the Associated Press. Trump has now traded his in for something better suited to his new rule, but it's unclear what it is. When Barack Obama became president in 2009, he famously refused to give up his BlackBerry smartphone without a fight. After more than 2 months of discussions, it was decided that he could keep it as long as it was heavily modified to be more secure. Obama did upgrade that BlackBerry eventually, reportedly to an iPhone. However, he told Jimmy Fallon last summer that his handset did not have the ability to download apps, take pictures, or even play music. It could only be used to browse the web and read the news. It's unclear whether Trump has opted for a restricted iPhone. It would be an interesting choice given his relationship with Apple throughout the campaign. At one point, Trump called for an Apple boycott when the company refused to unlock a handset for the FBI. You guys remember that story? I sure do. Trump's old phone could now end up in the newseum, a museum that chronicles the First Amendment and the evolution of electronic communication. Curators reportedly reached out to Trump's campaign last November to request a device, but they've yet to get a reply. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Donald Trump's changing that, and it would be kind of interesting if he has an iPhone, considering his issues with Apple, how he's expressed the potential for his support of a boycott. Another thing that Trump did, one of his first days in office here, his first official act was to pledge support for the CIA. that he has been kind of critical in the news about. He said that the CIA, their information about Russian hacking, again, which I can concur with, I think that Russia did hack the DNC and the Podesta emails, and I think they were responsible for colluding with WikiLeaks to release that information. Now, I'm not necessarily saying WikiLeaks knew who they were getting the information from. It could have been through a third party or even a fourth or fifth party. You could have had a big chain of custody before this information got to them, and they could have gotten the information from somebody who didn't even know that they got the information from Russia. So, but I do think that Russia did have a hand in this. I think they were trying to manipulate the election in so far as they could influence the election by releasing the hacked email information. I don't think it actually worked. I don't think they were as successful as the mainstream media has made it out to be. But I have a clip here from Donald Trump at the CIA. He's talking to them. This is what he said to the CIA on one of his first acts in office.
Well, I want to thank everybody. Very, very special people. Very, very few people could do the job you people do. And I want to just let you know, I am so behind you. And I know maybe sometimes you haven't gotten the backing that you've wanted. And you're going to get so much backing. Maybe you're going to say, please don't give us so much backing.
Oh, my God, he's doing it again.
Mr. President, please, we don't need that much backing. But you're going to have that, and I think everybody in this room knows it. You know, the military and the law enforcement, generally speaking, but all of it, but the military gave us tremendous percentages of votes. We were unbelievably successful in the election with getting the vote of the military, and probably almost everybody in this room voted for me, but I will not ask you to raise your hands if you did. But I would guarantee a big portion, because we're all on the same wavelength, folks. We're all on the same wavelength, right? He knows.
That guy over there, he knows. That guy right there. Yeah, stand up. Oh, no, you're in a wheelchair. Sorry. Take a bow.
Took Brian about 30 seconds to figure that one out, right? Because
that reminded me of the Joe Biden moment where he asked the guy to stand up and take a bow who was in a wheelchair. Anyway, so with this being said, Donald Trump is now in the process of, from what I can gather of Donald Trump's behavior, by the way, Donald Trump is now in the process of his trying to woo his opposition, people who he doesn't like or are doing things he doesn't like. He went to war with them. Now he's in charge of them. Now he's trying to woo them. If they don't submit, or if he thinks that they're doing something that against his wishes or against his best interest, I believe Donald Trump will continue to attack the CIA. That's what Donald Trump does. Anytime anyone has a counter narrative to what Donald Trump says, he immediately goes into attack mode and discredit mode. So, will Donald Trump and the CIA mend fences? Will they, suddenly stop feuding? I don't know. I have no idea what will happen in this environment, but I can tell you this. If the CIA continues to do, according to Donald Trump, if he's actually right in this accusation where they're purposefully releasing information attempting to hurt Donald Trump, if that was a CIA plan to try to basically intimidate Donald Trump, is he willing to take on the CIA? And if he is, who would win in this scenario? The intelligence apparatus that could try to destroy him, the one that, by the way, it needs to be pointed out, if there is a intelligence apparatus that is running amok, a shadow government, so to speak, this is something that should concern every citizen. If the government can attack, if an element of the government, the intelligence agencies, can attack the President of the United States and target them specifically to try to discredit him, if this is happening, and if it actually does happen more in the future, we have to really question what is going on in our intelligence agencies. Moreover, I think it's also important to note that Trump could try to form another CIA, something else. Trump could try to clean house in the CIA. It's possible. I don't know all the powers that he has in regards to that. So he could try, and Congress could try to help him. And he's got the bully pulpit. I just think it's a dangerous game that you're playing here with the CIA. That's all I'm going to say on that. I think it's a dangerous game, but it should be concerning for all citizens if they can come after the president, they can come after anyone. So just keep that in mind. Anyway, here's another article. This is the Washington Post, WashingtonPost.com. Article titled, Trump vows insurance for everybody in Obamacare replacement plan. Still sounding a whole lot like single payer to me, folks. Robert Costa and Amy Goldstein wrote this article on January 15th, 2017. President-elect Donald Trump said in a weekend interview that he is nearing completion of a plan to replace President Obama's signature health care law with the goal of insurance for everybody, while also vowing to force drug companies to negotiate directly with the government on prices in Medicare and Medicaid. Trump declined to reveal specifics in a telephone interview late Saturday with the Washington Post, but any proposal from the incoming president would almost certainly dominate the Republican effort to overhaul federal health policy as he prepares to work with his party's congressional majorities. Trump's plan is likely to face questions from the right after years of GOP opposition to further expansion of government involvement in the health care system, and from those on the left who see his ideas as disruptive to changes brought by the Affordable Care Act that have extended coverage to tens of millions of Americans. So, first of all, let's also point out that after years of GOP opposition to further expansion of government involvement in the healthcare system, yes, government should not be involved in the healthcare system, period. That's it. That's a solution. You want to make the prices cheaper? Get the government the hell out of it. That's how you make prices cheaper. You open up the state lines. You allow these corporations to compete across state lines, therefore increasing the competition in the market, therefore lowering the price. That is what there is a demand. There's always going to be a demand for health care, and people want it who can't get it. And people who can't afford it aren't able to buy it, and now in Obamacare they're being charged a tax or a penalty, however you want to look at it, according to Supreme Court interpretations, whatever. But the left, they don't want to see Obamacare being disturbed, according to this article. Anyway, in addition to his replacement plan for the ACA, also known as Obamacare, Trump said he will target pharmaceutical companies over drug prices. They're politically protected, but not anymore. He said pharmaceutical companies, the objectives of broadening access to insurance and lowering health care costs has also been in conflict, and it remains unclear how the plan that the incoming administration is designing, or the ones will emerge on Capitol Hill, would address that tension. So here's my question. Should a medicine company be able to charge whatever price they want? I say they should be. I don't believe that the government should be involved in regulating and trying to prevent price gouging. And again, I think some of the reasons why the medicine is as high as it is because of the redistribution of wealth caused from Obamacare in these insurance markets and Medicare Part D and all of this other crap that's influencing and artificially changing the demand without affecting supply of these drugs. It's causing the medicine to go up. When you price control, it fails. These are Keynesian economic policies. I believe in Austrian economic policies, the free market. Donald Trump apparently doesn't. He thinks that the government can centrally control these kind of things and have better results than free market with competition, where no one in the market is getting special favors, unfair advantages over their competition by the government. The issue is always government. When the government gets involved, it becomes worse, more efficient, more inefficient, more corrupt. There's always more fraud, waste, and abuse. The article continues, in general, congressional GOP plans to replace Obamacare have tended to try to constrain costs by reducing government requirements, such as the medical services that must be provided under health care plans sold through the law marketplaces and through states' Medicaid programs. House Speaker Paul Ryan and other Republicans have been talking lately about providing universal access to health insurance instead of universal insurance coverage. Universal access. What the heck does that mean? Universal access to health care insurance? Well, everybody has access to health insurance. You can go buy it. That's what you have access to. So is this or is this not single payer? I would like to hear some clarifications here. Trump said he expects Republicans in Congress to move quickly and in unison in the coming weeks on other priorities as well, including enacting sweeping tax cuts and beginning the building of a wall along the Mexican border. Do you all think Donald Trump's going to build that wall? I don't. I do not believe that one iota of that wall is going to be built. I do not believe it at all. I would be blown away if 10% of this wall gets built. I mean, I'll eat some major crow. I just don't see it happening. But I digress. Anyway, Trump warned Republicans if the party splinters or slows its agenda, he is ready to use the power of the presidency and Twitter to usher his legislation to passage. The Congress can't get cold feet because the people will not let that happen, Trump said during the interview with the Post. So if Donald Trump is opposed by his own party, if he tries to massively expand the government, and let's say, for example, the Republicans try to stop him from massively expanding the government's power, like imposing single payer. Let's say it's single payer. All right. If it is, just for the sake of argument, he's going to start coming after the Republicans, just like he would anybody else, if his party, under his words, splinters, which means essentially not following his agenda, rather than the ideology of what the conservatives are supposed to be, small government party. So he'll attack them using the bully pulpit and Twitter, and do what he can using the power of the presidency. So what does that mean? Executive orders? Okay. The Congress can't get cold feet, he said. Okay, so Trump said his plan for replacing most aspects of Obamacare health law is all but finished, although he was coy about the details. Lower numbers, much lower deductibles. He said he is ready to unveil it alongside Ryan and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. It's a very much formulated down to the final strokes. We haven't put it in quite yet, but we're going to be doing it soon, Trump said. He noted that he is waiting for his nominee for Secretary of Health and Human Services, Representative Tom Price, to be confirmed. That decision rests with the Senate Finance Committee, which hasn't scheduled a hearing. Okay, so that's a lot on Trump right now to digest. But overall, I think that the government's still going to grow. He still strikes me, again, I kind of conflate him to be a mixture between Nixon and FDR. I think those are two presidents that Donald Trump will probably admire, honestly. So maybe not openly admitting that he would admire Nixon, but some of the tactics, campaign tactics, and some of the tactics I think we're going to see from the Trump administration. Again, with the CIA, I'm concerned about that feud between them. What could happen? Could Trump attempt to, clean house in the CIA, maybe create a new CIA, do something else, a new executive branch that will basically be, Trump's investigation or intelligence agency, something along those lines. Also, him attacking the press, the free trade I've talked about as far as in the form of tariffs. Donald Trump has said he's not going to touch entitlements, so that obviously means that we're going to continue to grow the debt. We're spending deficit after deficit. We are in so much debt, 19, 20 trillion now in debt. How are we ever going to pay for this? We're selling our children into slavery with this amount of debt, and eventually, the debt is going to get to the point where we cannot pay back the interest on the debt. When we fail to pay back the interest, we lose our credit rating, which means nobody's going to want the U.S. dollars, which means that these deals that we have worked out with nations that are selling oil in only U.S. dollars, those deals will end. If we can't pay back the interest on the debt, we lose our credit rating, and then these countries decide they don't want to trade in U.S. dollars. That means all these billions of dollars comes flooding back into the U.S. economy, maybe even trillions of dollars, flooding back into the U.S. economy, causing hyperinflation, which increases our prices for food, other goods, while at the same time shrinking our GDP with these tariffs, these anti-free trade policies. Again, I think this is how the bubble burst. I think this is how it all comes down, in addition to any kind of geopolitical threats. Now, regarding Russia and war, I think we need to be asking ourselves right now, where are our red lines? Where are we prepared to draw a red line? Where are we prepared to fight Russia, or anybody for that matter? At what point are we prepared to invade and attack ISIS? Should we invade and attack ISIS? Is it worth it? Should we go in and try to topple Assad? Because that's a question that the Obama administration has been screaming a resounding yes to. They want to topple Assad. So, underneath the Trump administration, if the economic side of it doesn't come blasting home in time, we're going to have to answer these questions. And I believe Trump will probably be pulling back in the world in places that he doesn't think that you should be drawing a red line to fight. We should really ask, where are we prepared to fight Russia for? Who are we prepared to fight Russia for? Let's pick our allies, make the alliances with that, and draw that red line and stick to it. And everything else, look, again, I think Russia wants to put the old Soviet Union back together. We're not the world police. We shouldn't be trying to police this in the first place. But the reason why we do is because we have to maintain hegemonic power in order to get these countries, these nations around the world, to sell their oil in U.S. dollars. This is the petrodollar. This is the scam that we've created. It's allowed us to really set up essentially a Ponzi scheme here where we can keep spending and spending and spending and going into debt because people want the dollar, because our credit rating's good. And because our credit rating's good and the dollar looks strong, people want to buy and sell in U.S. dollars and oil. But if we lose that world reserve currency status, that game is over. That game is over. And 20 trillion in debt. We have to start asking some serious questions about a balanced budget. We just can't continue this. And Donald Trump refusing to cut any entitlements. We've got Social Security that's screaming towards insolvency. I'll never see this money in my lifetime that I'm forced to pay. Neither will anybody in the millennial generation. You're not going to see Social Security as it is now. And again, these are questions we should be asking. These are redistribution of wealth programs. Why are we doing them? I understand the war on poverty. I understand that we're trying to have a war on poverty, but all we've managed to do is perpetuate poverty and guarantee poverty. We haven't done anything at all to actually stop poverty. In fact, many of these communities that are on welfare or food stamps or receiving government entitlements, they're worse off now than they were before. All you have to do, for example, to look at what receiving an entitlement from the government does to you is look at the Indian reserves, okay? The Native American reserves. Those places, in many cases, not all, but in many cases, are crime-ridden and impoverished. And the reason why is because government money, free money, things that are free are, first of all, never free. And secondly, they disincentivize people to work. They disincentivize people to better their own lot. You get stuck in this trap of welfare. When you're on welfare, you can't get a new job. You can't go out and make more money. You can't accept a raise. You can't take more hours from your job because overall, you'll make less money from your welfare because you made more money over here. So you get stuck in this trap. Again, I believe this is institutionalized slavery, and the Democrats have been using this to gain Democratic voters, unfortunately. But, this is a problem I think will still continue underneath the Donald Trump administration. I just don't see that being fixed. We're going to have more universal health care, I argue, probably in the form of single payer, even if it isn't, even if it's some kind of weird Trump care, some kind of deviation of Obamacare. They get rid of some bad parts. They're still going to have the mandate. And if they don't have a mandate, it's going to fail. And that will lead towards bigger government. Again, the government can't be the solution to this problem because the government has created the problem. Why is healthcare prices so expensive? The government made them expensive. Why are college tuitions so expensive? The government made them so expensive. Their involvement in the process made it more expensive. Why is our GDP shrink underneath a nationalistic tariff-style policy? It's because the government's involved. The less we can have the government in the process, the more prosperous we're going to be. And the sooner we find that out as a nation and we come back to those fundamental principles, the better off we'll be. Anyway, we're going to cut to our last commercial break of the day. You guys don't want to go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Have you visited the On the Move with Mac Worley store? We've got amazing original design t-shirts, hoodies, cell phone cases, and coffee mugs for sale at OnTheMoveShow.com. Just click the shop link on our homepage. You won't want to miss out on the iHeart Open Carry and Bare Arms t-shirts for only $20 plus shipping. Again, just go to OnTheMoveShow.com and click the shop link on our homepage. Your purchases will help make the On The Move show bigger and better. We appreciate your support. Are you an activist who needs affordable flyers or brochures for passing out literature? Or a political candidate who's looking for business cards, logo designs, yard signs, or vehicle decals? Email me, Latasha Worley, for all your graphic design needs at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com. And don't forget to mention On The Move to get a 10% discount on all graphic design services.
This is Dan Sandini of DaylightDisinfectant.com, citizen journalist, friend of the late Andrew Breitbart, and cohort of James O'Keefe. I listen to On the Move with Mac Worley because the only time he's wrong is when he disagrees with me.
I do.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
All right, we're back. Okay, so in response to these anti-Trump protesters smashing windows, vandalizing cars on the streets of Washington article that I linked on our group, facebook.com/groups/OnTheMoveShow, Nance says, at least the left is doing a fantastic job of providing physical evidence of why they should never be put in power. Christopher says, agreed, talking about this post from Nance. It's always been the gun-loving crowd that was labeled as violent. Now we can say we told you so. Unfortunately, nothing will be done about it. I actually agree with that. Nothing probably will be done. Again, they fail. They are just incredibly not self-aware. If this was happening from the right, we would be demonized like no other. However, these rioters, these vandals, these criminals are being labeled as protesters, as freedom fighters. People just fighting the good fight. This isn't fighting the good fight. This is crime. This is crime, plain and simple. Janet says cowards. They wear clothes that cover their face so they can't be identified. Agreed. Yes, this is the tactic known as black bloc, by the way, where they all show up wearing all black, covering their faces, so they all look alike. You can't see any identifying features on them. They're all dressed in black. Obviously, it's easier for them to hide at night, or it also has a little bit of an intimidation factor with it. This is a protesting tactic called black bloc. And this is what they're doing. This is more of an anarchist, as has been pointed out by Mark earlier, and I believe Leo also, that it was essentially an anarchist group that's going around and vandalizing things. And I think at most these guys are a political opportunist. They just look for a reason to destroy stuff. So, destroying public property, private property, they're smashing in windows. It's disgusting what these people are doing. So I agree with you guys. So in regards to another article here, here's theguardian.com. The article is titled, New Online Generation Takes Up Holocaust Denial. I haven't read this one yet. I wanted to read it for you. Conspiracy theorists are flocking to outlandish websites, warns lecturer. This is written by Jamie Deward. And this is here goes the article. A new generation of Holocaust deniers is emerging through a clutch of popular gateway conspiracy theories, according to one of the UK's leading experts on the subject, as Denial, a film about the disgraced historian and notorious Holocaust denier David Irving, hits cinemas later this month. Attention is focusing on the aging generation of deniers who emerged with Irving at its vanguard and are now dying out. But it appears that the Holocaust denial has found a new momentum in the digital age. The UK's foremost academic on the subject claims a new internet-based generation is embracing denial, having been drawn to it out of anti-Semitism or a belief in conspiracy theories. Dr. Nicholas Terry, a history lecturer at Exeter University, estimates that there are now thousands of low-commitment he uses quotes on that, low-commitment Holocaust deniers online. Rather than recruiting from established far-right denial forums, they're attracting followers drawn to outlandish theories such as those surrounding the JFK assassination, 9/11, the moon landing, and Sandy Hook school massacre. In one sense, the internet means Holocaust deniers have got a lot of competition, Terry said. On the other, in this more free-form world, deniers have been able to attract a certain minority from the world of conspiracy theories. There's a sense of disorientation taking place when it comes to where people are getting their news from. This kind of free-for-all on the internet creates a milieu that has seen people who would normally identify along the left of the political spectrum gravitate toward ideas that are more at home on the far right. The release of Denial, which centers on the libel trial brought by Irving against the Holocaust scholar Deborah Lipstand, follows the controversy that erupted when the emerged Google's algorithms were recommending anti-Semitic, white nationalist, and Holocaust denier websites for searches of the question, did the Holocaust happen? The film has already been attacked by the new generation of deniers on YouTube, Reddit, and Twitter. Okay, so I won't go into the rest of this article here. You can feel free to read it for yourself. But I will just ask, does anybody actually believe this? Are we out there actually saying that the Holocaust didn't happen? Because it did. People died. This is historic fact. This is not opinion. The Holocaust happened. The Jews were targeted. Is there really question of that? Is there evidence to suggest that this didn't happen? No, of course. It is a conspiracy theory. And anyone purporting to say that the Holocaust never took place is a conspiracy theorist. You know, I don't like to deal in conspiracy fiction. All right? I deal in conspiracy fact. Like Obama using the IRS to target the Tea Party in an election year. Yeah. That's something that we should be concerned about, that because it actually happened. There's evidence of it. And then suddenly, by the way, the Lois Lerner and the IRS, all their computers are destroyed. They all crap out at the same time. And then by the way, they destroy them. They shred them. They shred their print or their hard drive. So yes, very suspicious. That's conspiracy fact. Operation Fast and Furious, the toting guns to Mexican drug cartels, knowingly, willingly, allowing those guns to cross the border in an attempt to make it look like U.S. guns are the problem for Mexican drug violence. Okay. So those are real conspiracies. Those are conspiracy fact, not conspiracy fiction. Now, let me give you an article here from NBC News. The Ukraine fears that Putin will step forward if Trump pulls back. This is what most of the world is concerned about. And again, this is the question we should be asking ourselves. How far do we pull back? How far should we pull back? Is pulling back a good idea? If we don't pull back, we're going to have to move forward and become very aggressive with Russia. Are you prepared to fight Russia? Do you all want to go into a war with Russia? Personally, I would like to avoid that at all costs, but not at the cost of not protecting our interest, our specific interest. I don't think that we should have an interest in the Middle East anymore. I think we should become energy independent. We should hamstring the EPA, start tapping into our vast oil reserves, and allow the free market. As long as the EPA and the IRS are off people's back, the free market will take over. People will be innovating, creating new energy alternatives. But now it's impossible. It's impossible to start a small business nowadays with the amount of regulation you have just from Obamacare, not to mention the EPA or the IRS. But just Obamacare. Employers are not wanting to supply full-time positions because they have to supply your health care. Now you see so many employers that are only providing part-time employment. And the books are cooked. The joblessness numbers that they have are laughable. We're talking about fake news here, folks, at the U.S. jobless numbers that are being reported by this White House. By the way, Barack Obama is going to be looked back as the best president in the world. He's going to be looked back like as FDR was, who was a horrible statist progressive. So the government's reporting fake numbers in regards to their joblessness claim. They say that we're at the lowest level in 43 years when we have more than 90 million Americans who are not participating in the labor force. Pure propaganda. You know they're going to start reporting, the AP is going to start reporting the legitimate numbers here. You know, they're trying to say, first of all, Obama, he went up to a 60% approval rating here. His last few weeks, he went out with a 60% approval rating because of how much people dislike Obama, dislike Clinton. In comparison, he didn't seem so bad, I suppose, especially when he's not saying so much in the news. So it's no surprise that his rating went up, and then obviously Donald Trump with his low numbers, he's at what, like a 45% when he took office here, 45% approval rating. I wonder where that'll go. I wonder if he's going to be able to sustain 2 terms. I'm starting to doubt it, but I suppose we'll see. We'll see. But the Ukraine is fearing that...
Daniels, I'm president
Hold on a
Purdue
second.
University.
I got a clip here that loaded. Didn't mean to do that. The Ukraine is concerned now that Trump is going to step back. Who knows what's going to happen? I typically think that Trump right now is in the friend mode, trying to befriend Russia. I don't think Russia will respond to that. Russia will probably... This is my prediction. I'm making it now. Trump will try to get Russia to do something. And if Trump doesn't get his way, he'll attack Russia on Twitter, verbally, in the press. Eventually, he'll try to use that momentum to try to get Putin to come along. But this game doesn't work. This won't work on Putin. Putin's not going to care what Donald Trump says about him, even if it was really, really mean. So Putin's not going to be obliged by that. And Donald Trump would have to step up his game at that point. He'd have to start taking some real military action at some point, or at least engage in some espionage or blackmail or something. I don't know what's going to happen, but what I do think is that we have a real possibility. If Trump pulls back, it will embolden Russia. Russia will do something, and I want you to imagine this scenario. Just imagine this script if you saw this in a movie. Trump's friendly with Russia, tries to get Russia to do what he wants. Russia won't. It emboldens Russia. They start taking territory, trying to reconstitute the old Soviet Union. Who knows what's next? Let's say another one of these old Soviet Union nations. Let's say Latvia. Let's say they invade Latvia, okay, and say they're trying to take that back. And what's President Trump to do? And moreover, what if Russia starts claiming that they did indeed collude with Putin or with Donald Trump? What if Putin says we did indeed collude with Donald Trump to rig the election? What if they say that? Because they know how damaging that would be, and Donald Trump would be upset at that. Donald Trump, his credibility would be in question, even if it wasn't true. Even if it's not true, just the mere accusation, the propaganda put forth by that nation, Russia, if they did this, could really damage Donald Trump and embolden the left, and CNN and the left will report on that. So we have a real risk here of war. We're in a tricky situation. Do we want to go to war with Russia? Because if we don't, then we're going to have to start pulling back from the world. We're going to have to re-identify who our allies are, who our strategic commitments are, who we're willing to fight and die for, and who's willing to fight and die for us, and draw those red lines and hold to them. Because if we don't push back when Russia pushes, then they're going to push more. Eventually, they're going to force us into a corner where we're going to have to make some kind of drastic military action against them. My suggestion is that we try to... I would re-identify, reconstitute, or reorganize NATO, or another group. And if it were me, I would leave NATO and reconstitute a new organization, a new alliance against Russia or against Soviet aggression. And I would make sure everybody in that new alliance was worthy of United States support. Because if Russia comes after them, if we have a strategic alliance, we have to defend them. Otherwise, we lose credibility. So I agree that we're creating a power vacuum right now. This is what happens when we create a power vacuum. Somebody's going to fill the void. I argue it's going to be China or Russia or ISIS when we create power vacuums. But this is a real geopolitical mess, a real problem, because we have a bad actor, Putin, on the world stage. And he's been let to do whatever he basically wants to do, and has very minimal consequences against him. These sanctions don't really do much. So he's faced very minimal consequences for his aggression. But I digress. We got one last story to get here to get through today. I just want to make sure here. Facebook introduces a fake news filter in Germany. We're going to go ahead and go into a Mac attack for this one, because this one is something else, I will tell you. Here we go.
It's time for the Mac Attack!
This is a segment of the show where I talk about outrageous events in the news, and I think this is particularly outrageous. Facebook has just become the Ministry of Truth. They're the ones who are going to tell you what news is true, what news is fake. They're the arbiter. In Germany, anyway. Facebook introduces fake news filter in Germany in time for federal elections by Matthew Hughes, written 7 days ago on thenextweb.com. Okay. The Financial Times is reporting that Facebook is to roll out a fake news filter in Germany. The move comes in time for Germany's federal elections, which are due to take place later this year. German lawmakers are troubled by the potential of hyper-partisan fake news to unduly influence the outcome of the upcoming election. In recent months, there have been a number of fake news stories and hoaxes, the majority of which are critical of Merkel. Okay, so essentially, Merkel is going to get help from Facebook, and they're going to censor free speech. This is what I'm hearing. They're going to censor. Again, it's not just the right that is producing fake news. The left, and CNN, by the way, is producing fake news. Everybody seems to be producing some form of fake news at one time or another nowadays, because we're so partisan right now. We're all worried about one side or another, not the truth, not the pursuit of information. And that is what we need to be focused on, not filtering out information, getting all the information, hearing all sides of the story, trying to become informed on the issue, and to be able to determine what is fake and what is not fake. You need to focus with a critical eye as an individual. We empower you. Instead of Facebook to tell you what's the truth, instead of the government to tell you what the truth is, you should have a hunger and a desire to learn what the truth is. You should look at the sources and determine if they're credible. That's what we should be doing, not handing this over to one group. Now, Facebook users will be able to report suspected fake news stories. These will then be sent to the Berlin-based media nonprofit Corrective. If they deem that the story to be false, the article will be marked as disputed, along with an explanation of how Corrective came to that conclusion. Oh, really? Okay. That's beautiful. So anybody can dispute it. You just dispute it. Oh, hey, Fast and Furious. We report about Fast and Furious. The left probably think it's a conspiracy theory and not based on fact, and dispute it. Anybody can dispute it. In addition, Facebook will warn users before they share a fake news story. They will also appear lower in the news feed, thereby reducing their visibility. So, again, silencing and censoring. Great, Facebook. Who's in charge of determining what's fake news? Corrective, the nonprofit, a nonprofit, and we're supposed to believe that this Corrective group is nonpartisan and they don't have an agenda to promote. Who are they? I ask. And as I'm trying to load up their website, it's not loading. So this doesn't inspire a lot of faith. Corrective. Here we go. Racially profiling. I'm reading some articles here on Corrective. Racially profiling by police isn't just an American problem. I'm experiencing it in Germany. I'll be heading back to the Philippines this time, though. Hell is a bit hotter. Okay, so I don't know what this is. Obviously a news website here. And just like all news sites, they have some kind of agenda. Let's see their headliner: "We expose injustice. We're independent and nonprofit." Let's see who Corrective is. "We are the first nonprofit investigative newsroom in the German-speaking world. Our goal is to give citizens access to information, and yet they're going to be the ones to decide what information you get to see and which you don't." Again, this is very concerning and something we should all be aware of. I really hope that we will see in the coming years more competition on the internet, more choices other than Google, other than Facebook, other than Twitter. I want more access to information and less from just one source. I don't want the illusion that I'm getting a variety of choice, like you get the illusion of variety at the grocery store. Anyway, so that's our show for today, folks. I really do appreciate you all for tuning in. MacPack, you're the tip of the spear, and I really do, I really do just appreciate your continued support. I want to give a shout out to Mark Delphine and Leo Stratton for joining me on the show today. I really, really do appreciate that. I thought they did an awesome job, so shout out to them. Also, don't forget to check us out every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can do so on our hub, OnTheMoveShow.com. You can also do that on Spreaker.com/OnTheMoveShow. You can listen to us on YouthRevolt.org, the405media.com. You can like us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. Follow us on Twitter @OnTheMoveShow, and subscribe to us on YouTube.com/OnTheMoveShow. Also, no matter what platform you're on, please share out the program. Tell your friends, your family, say, hey, check out this guy, Mac. I think you'll like him. For whatever reason that you can think of. Whatever you're getting out of the program. If you made it this far in the program, please hit the like button. I would certainly appreciate it. And don't forget to follow us on all of our platforms. And as always, know your rights, assert your rights, and get on the move.